Entertainment begins with a journey. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Wildlife Conservation Society. After loading the luggage into the car, the two grown men embraced each other with laughter. After a long moment, they finally let go. Hong Wenlin introduced them. "This is Miles, a partner I met on my last A trip to Africa." He pointed at Yukai and introduced them. "This is photographer Sean, and animal trainers Chen Zhai and Song Liang." Yukai was tired of being called Yi, which made people think he was watching porn. So, on his visa, he listed Sean as his English name. The name came from a movie Yukai liked. After the group got to know each other, Miles drove them to the animal conservation base in Liuwa Plain National Park, a 4-hour drive north of Zambia. China has 56 ethnic groups, and Africa has 56 countries. Compared to most African nations, Zambia has at least completed its transition from a backward to developing country. "You can get some sleep," Miles said. "I slept in the plane," Yukai said. "Besides, this is my first time in Africa, and I want to see more of the scenery. I can't sleep." "What's there to see?" Hong Wenlin said, lying in the passenger seat with his eyes closed. "All of Africa is basically desolate, with only a few cities. There's really nothing to see." Africa wasn't as bad as Hong Wenlin described. Near the airport was a construction base, and after passing it, the car entered a city. Yukai didn't know the name of the city, but it was quite prosperous, with a lot of people living there. You could often see Chinese signs on the roadside shops. There are a lot of Chinese people in Zambia. Some come with companies, some just to make money. "Tisk, I don't know what's so good about being oppressed here," Song Liang said to Yukai, as he also prepared to sleep, lying back in the seat. Only Chen Zhai, like Yukai, was fascinated by Africa and stared out the window with a lively look. After passing the city, the road was desolate. The road was well maintained, but on both sides were the western scenes you'd see in literature or film and television. A desolate and yellow sandy landscape. Yukai shrugged, looking down at his phone. He hadn't updated his Weibo account in ages, and he hadn't checked his live stream in a while either. He wondered how many followers he'd lost. It had been so long since his last performance, so he probably wouldn't have that many people following him by now, right? After all, his Weibo followers had remained stable at 1.7 million, having barely increased in days. Some people were just cheap, like Yukai. He couldn't bear to part with the talent gained from his Weibo following, but he also worried that too many people would be a nuisance if he knew him. Yukai posted on Weibo, "I'm in Africa now. I'll live stream you guys when I see some wildlife later." As soon as he posted and exited, someone left a comment. "Sofa, front row, I'm the first one." That day, Yukai finally remembered his Weibo account. It seemed this group of netizens was quite active. Yukai turned off his phone and leaned back in his seat, ready to take a nap. The road turned from level asphalt to dirt, and the car began to slow, but a cloud of dust still rose from behind. Yukai woke up immediately and quickly rolled down the window. "How long will it take?" Yukai asked. Miles said, "We should be there in an hour, but the road ahead gets even harder. By the way, you don't get carsick, do you?" Before he could finish this sentence, Chen Zhai, who was sitting by the right window, suddenly leaned out and began vomiting violently. How long had they been in the car? Song Liang, the portly man in the middle, patted Chen Zhai's back and laughed. "It seems you were born to be a clerk. On the grasslands, you travel by car. How are you going to do this?" Laughter was contagious. Seeing the portly man's laughter, Yukai started laughing too. The two men in front exchanged glances and couldn't help but laugh too. Chen Zhai was the only one with a grimace. He wasn't prone to motion sickness, so why did he become so prone to it once he arrived in Africa? The car trudged through mountains and rivers. In some places, it was hard to tell if there was a road, but Miles had clearly driven this route many times and remembered exactly where to slow down and where to turn. The most terrifying part for Yukai was a floating bridge over the water, which looked very flimsy. But Miles drove straight ahead. He breathed a sigh of relief as he arrived at the base. This was a corner of Liuwa Plain National Park. No roads led to it, and the only way to get there was via dangerous dirt roads. The road they had taken was the safest. Perhaps it was this inaccessibility that gave Liuwa Plain National Park its pristine condition. It was one of Africa's earliest protected areas. In the 1880s, the local tribal king declared it a royal hunting ground. Each family was responsible for their own area and depended on it for their livelihood. Therefore, they took great care to maintain a sustainable hunting environment. While this grassland might not be as large as the famous African savanna, it was home to a large number of animals, making it a haven for poachers. Larger grasslands have patrols, but here, only the WPSA, Wildlife Conservation Society, was present. The car stopped in front of a house. After getting out, Ye Kai noticed a sign on the side of the road, WPSA International Aid Project. Just then, the door opened, and a casually dressed woman emerged. She was probably in her 30s, wearing canvas pants and a gray-black jacket. She had long brown hair and was quite pretty. "Hi. Welcome," she said. Ye Kai put down his luggage and went to shake her hand, saying, "Hello, I'm Sean." "Welcome, Sean. I'm Phyllis." After Hong Wenlin introduced her, Ye Kai realized that this woman, Phyllis, was actually the director of the Zambian Wildlife Rescue. He had noticed that many of the leaders of the WPSA were women. Phyllis let everyone in first and said, "It's almost lunchtime. I'll show you around and then we can have lunch together." "Okay. Of course." Ye Kai and Chen Jai, the two newcomers, nodded in agreement. Hong Wenlin and Song Liang left after entering, apparently not needing to get to know each other any further. The two newcomers followed Phyllis. Phyllis's expression was always gentle. Whenever someone spoke, she would stop behind them and look at the person speaking with a gentle expression. After entering through the gate, there was a man-made forest, with trees spaced relatively far apart. There was also a stone-paved path, which they walked on. "You can rest here later," Phyllis said, pointing to the tent in the woods. Chapter 77 Lion. "Sleep here?" Ye Kai glanced around. In the distance, a cluster of houses stretched out in a row. They all looked impressive, with modern decor. This was the best decorated house Ye Kai had seen since arriving in Africa. Were all those houses occupied? "Are we going to live in tents forever?" Ye Kai asked. Phyllis waved her hand gently, smiling. "Of course not. The houses we live in haven't been prepared yet. This is just a place for you to rest for a while. You can sleep in the rooms tonight. Is that so?" "No problem." Since they didn't know how long they'd be staying here, they couldn't stay in tents forever. Passing by the tents, Phyllis introduced them one by one. "This is the treatment room. The veterinarian has been here for 3 years. He's back to spend Christmas with his family, and we're not sure if he'll come back." Chen Jai immediately declared, "I'll do my best to treat all the animals and won't bring shame to my predecessor." Chen Jai was a licensed veterinarian with a degree in animal science. He became a volunteer right after graduation, and he didn't know what his parents would think. But anyone who joined an international rescue organization wouldn't be short of money. He might be a wealthy second-generation kid. Many of these houses housed injured animals. Behind them was a long iron fence, enclosing a vast grassland. "Those are the animals that have recovered better and are ready for release into the wild," Phyllis said. Ye Kai spotted several elephants walking together inside, and further away were ostriches, giraffes, zebras, and others. "So many animals!" Chen Jai exclaimed in surprise. It was truly more fun abroad. Back home, I was either rescuing kittens and puppies or giving pigs injections. It felt like years of studying this profession had been wasted. Phyllis laughed heartily, finding the new veterinarian amusing, with a touch of youthful naivete. "Let's go, let's eat," she said. The kitchen, a separate room not far from the treatment room, was about 30 to 40 square meters. In addition to the cooking area, it also housed a long table. It served as both a kitchen and dining room, where they cooked, ate, and, of course, washed dishes. When Ye Kai and his companions entered the kitchen, everyone else at the base was already seated at the table. Hong Wenlin and Miles were chatting quietly, while Song Liang was watching short videos from China. "Oh, you're finally here." Song Liang turned off his phone and warmly invited everyone to sit down, even attentively pulling out chairs for them. After they sat down, Ye Kai smiled and said, "Thank you. You look starving." "You're absolutely right." Everyone smiled and began to eat. The meals were all Chinese: roast chicken with potatoes, vegetable soup, stir-fried vegetables, and stir-fried meat with black fungus. They were all homely, cooked by anyone at the base who had time. There was no dedicated chef. However, during their conversation, it became clear that Song Liang had always been the chef. He had never cooked before, but it was only after going abroad that he gradually learned how to be a good chef. A moment of silence was held for the colleague who had tasted the food. "So, what should we do after dinner?" Yukai asked. "Feed the animals in the enclosure and check on them," Phyllis said, putting down her chopsticks. "But you've been on the plane for so long, so don't worry about any work today. Take a couple of days off." "I don't need to rest," Chen Zhai said immediately. Yukai shrugged. He didn't care, even if he had to endure a few days. His body was several times stronger than Chen Zhai, who looked like a homebody. Phyllis refused, saying, "There's nothing much for you to do right now. Sean's work is very flexible, and you, Chen, I really hope you have the easiest job here. If no animals are hurt, you don't need to work too hard. The base doesn't interfere with normal hunting between animals. Their purpose is to protect animals from being hunted by humans, not to rescue them. Once poachers start poaching, it's difficult for animals to survive. Therefore, work here is not very busy." Phyllis introduced the two newcomers. Song and Miles are both keepers. There are also two patrol teams. They drive out for patrol every morning and return in the evening. "Is Brother Hong also on patrol?" Chen Zhai asked. Hong Wenlin nodded and said, "Yes, but they're all gone today, and I won't be working until tomorrow. Don't wander around after dinner, go and rest." This was the only thing going on at the base, and she had basically told Yikai and Chen Zhai everything. After eating, the two returned to the temporary tent for resting. Chen Zhai talked nicely during the meal, but when he returned to the tent, he laid down and fell asleep, and soon he was snoring. Since it was daytime, Yikai couldn't sleep either. After going out, he saw Phyllis standing outside the fence. "What are you looking at?" Yikai asked as he approached. Phyllis turned around and saw that it was Yikai. She smiled at him and continued to look into the distance. It was Song Liang who was feeding a group of elephants. He used a large plastic bottle, 10 times larger than a baby bottle, with a huge silicone nipple at the bottle mouth. The baby elephant was biting the nipple and drinking happily. Phyllis put her hands in her pockets, with a motherly smile on her face. "It's called Mcalika. Isn't it beautiful? When a baby elephant's mother is killed for her ivory, it can't survive without her. That's why we rescue the most baby elephants here." Yukai leaned on the fence post and asked curiously, "Are there a lot of poachers?" "There are a lot this season, and the poachers have been very cruel recently. We haven't found a single injured animal, most are dead." They both fell silent. From this vantage point, they could even hear the gurgling sounds of the baby elephants as they drank. Phyllis suddenly asked Yukai, "Do you want to see the white lion?" "Are there?" Yukai said in surprise. He had thought only herbivores were here. "Of course, come with me." Phyllis turned and walked towards the nearby houses. It turned out that the carnivores were all inside the houses. The houses had two doors, a small door leading in from here, the same size as a normal door. The other door led out to the grasslands behind them. Some animals, unable to survive on their own, needed to receive treatment here before being released. Yukai finally saw the white lion. This is not a little guy, this is a beautiful lioness in her youth. When the two entered the door, her head immediately stood up from the ground, and her eyes looked at Yukai with sparkling eyes. There's an iron gate behind the door. The keeper feeds her outside the iron gate to prevent some carnivores from suddenly attacking the keeper. But this lion will not. Yukai saw that her limbs were wrapped in gauze. She has no claws. Please recommend, please recommend, please recommend. It is important to say it 3 times. Chapter 78: The Effect of Doubling Intimacy. White lions, also known as albino African lions, are a variant of the Kruger lion, native to Africa. Their white skin isn't due to albinism, but rather is a natural part of the species. In Africa, there's a belief that the claws of white lions have medicinal properties, leading to long-standing poaching of some white lions. Phyllis sighed and whispered, "It's cruel, isn't it? There are only 100 white lions left in South Africa. If they continue to be hunted, they'll soon be extinct. More than cruel." As if understanding Phyllis's words, the white lion lowered its head slightly, looking at its feet. Then, from behind her, a soft, babyish whine echoed. "A woo! A woo!" A tiny lion poked its head out from behind her. Unlike its mother, this white lion was healthy, though tiny, appearing to be only 2 or 3 months old. "So cute. Yukai squatted down, his hands on the iron fence, and asked, "Can I record it? Or maybe live stream it?" Of course, Phyllis squatted down as well. When we found this lion mother, she was pregnant with her cub and seriously injured. After we rescued the cub, she surprisingly survived. Maybe she wanted to watch her cub grow up, Yukai replied, opening his live stream on his phone. He hadn't live streamed in a while, but because he'd posted a Weibo reminder earlier, many netizens were waiting in the live stream to be the first to see Yukai's live stream. Compared to watching the game, Yukai's live stream was clearly more interesting. First, the person above was first for half an hour. "I'm the real first," they were discussing who'd speak first, while more people were attracted by the beautiful clawless lion and the kitten-like cub in the video. The white color brought danger to these animals, but it also made them more beautiful and more in line with human aesthetics. "Wow, a white lion, is this really Africa? Just looking at the lion, you tell me this is Africa?" Yukai pointed the camera at the cage and said, "We just arrived here. This is the outskirts of Liuba National Park, at the Animal Protection Association's base. What you see is a white lion whose claws were chopped off by poachers." Yukai suddenly reached through the wire mesh, inviting her. "What are you doing?" Phyllis exclaimed. The white lion wasn't aggressive at the moment, but if anyone approached her cub, she would stand up on her clawless limbs and frantically attack anyone who tried. Yukai said, "It's okay." He could sense the lion held no ill will towards him. It was a feeling he couldn't quite put his finger on, but it was subtle and real. It was like a pet at home. Sometimes, an owner can tell how a dog or cat feels just by looking at them. Yukai probably felt that way right now. "Come on, little darling," Yukai whispered, his eyes fixed on the lion cub, which was curious about him. The little lion's sweet voice could melt anyone's heart. Why cut off a lion's claws? What's the point? So pitiful. A barrage of comments flashed by. Gradually, more and more people joined the live stream. It was now around 6 or 7 in China, a time when Chinese people are most relaxed. A little lion cub approached the white lion. The white lion, in a rare display of non-protective behavior, watched its child walk toward Yukai. Oh my god. Phyllis couldn't believe what she was seeing. So many people tried to help the mother lion, but nothing worked. The white lion went berserk when she woke up and couldn't see her cub. Her wounds hadn't healed yet, and any strenuous exercise would cause her to bleed. So the little lion had always stayed with the white lion. Despite the white lion's inconvenience, he was also very caring for the little lion, so they let him stay with them. And now, when the little lion crawled over to Yukai, the white lion didn't stop him. Seeing this, Phyllis was also eager to try. She loved the little lion too. Women have no resistance to cute, furry creatures. Touched. The lion cub's soft paw rested on Yukai's hand. A warm feeling welled up inside Yukai, and he rubbed the cub's paw with his thumb. "Ow!" The cub cried contentedly. Netizens immediately chanted, "Let go of the cat, let me do it." Yukai also loved petting cats, but now, after seeing the lion cub, he thought, petting a lion would definitely be more satisfying. So he handed his phone to Phyllis, who was standing nearby. "Excuse me, could you please hold it for me?" "Of course, you amazing Chinese boy." Phyllis, still in shock and disbelief, could only attribute all this to the magical nation of China. In the eyes of many British people, China is terrifying. Their image of the Chinese is still relegated to the fictional image of a demon named Fu Manchu. "Thank you," Yukai said. Then, noticing the white lion's expression, he lifted the cub up with both hands and gently stroked its back. Phyllis, envious, asked, "Can I hold him?" "Not yet," Yukai said. He could sense the white lion was nervous, and even Yukai didn't dare hold her for long. The poachers had inflicted far more damage on her than the people at the base had imagined. Yukai had previously thought X3's affinity wouldn't improve much, but now it seemed his affinity with wild animals was truly impressive. He carefully placed the cub back in its cage, letting it run towards its mother. Phyllis sighed, but felt helpless. "Here," she handed the phone back to Yukai. When she took it, the barrage of text had already jammed, a dense display of the letters OSL. The internet in Africa wasn't as good as in mainland China. Even 5G would lag. Yukai logged back into the live stream, holding up his phone, and asked, "Are there any other animals? I'd love to see them." "Of course," Phyllis replied. There were no carnivores left, most of the animals being treated here were large herbivores. But with any animal, Yukai enjoyed a tripled affinity. Even an elephant, wary of strangers, didn't mind Yukai's approach. Yukai spent 3 hours taking photos with every animal in the base. The live stream was a blast, and his followers, who had lost a few days ago, shot back up. Only after the patrol team returned did Yukai turn off the live stream and go to clean up the room with Chenjai. Otherwise, they would have to stay in a tent tonight. Their place had everything they needed, including internet, water, and electricity. All they needed was a little cleaning and moving 2 single beds in, and it would be a very nice dormitory. Chapter 79 African Grasslands. Arriving at the kitchen, there were significantly more people eating dinner than at lunch. They were all black, dressed in camouflage. Their daily routine was to patrol the grasslands, starting after breakfast and returning for dinner after dark. Some weren't even members of animal protection organizations, but rather retired soldiers recruited from other countries. Hong Wenlin was probably the only Asian patrolman here, though his skin now looked just like a black man's. By this point, Yikai had met everyone at the base. The patrol consisted of 4 vehicles and 16 people. Phyllis was the base manager, Chen Zhai was the veterinarian, there were 3 zookeepers, and several researchers. Song Liang sat next to Yikai and asked him during a chat, "With so many of us on patrol, how dare poachers come? Are they risking their lives?" Life? Song Liang had spent a lot of time in Africa, so he didn't use the word with the same seriousness he used back home. For many Africans, life is nothing, money is far more important. Phyllis opened a bottle of wine and said, "We have new colleagues here today, let's welcome them." Grain wine is very expensive in Africa, so the black uncles were naturally overjoyed to have such a chance to drink. After dinner, when the wine was gone, they took a common African fruit wine and danced in the courtyard. Yukai couldn't help but join them in a few dances. African dance moves are very similar to shaman dances, carrying a wild and ancient atmosphere. This kind of dance, once reserved for sacrifices and prayers, has now become a form of performance in Africa. Many people travel to Africa, and in safer countries, they often encounter African dance performances or African hand drumming along the way. The night ended with a commotion, and tomorrow was sure to be even more beautiful. Phyllis wanted to take Yukai to the grasslands to see cheetahs. Humans have been cutting down trees en masse in recent decades, further compressing the habitat of African grassland animals. Coupled with the greenhouse effect caused by massive carbon dioxide emissions, Africa's annual dry season is growing longer and hotter. Many animals can't tolerate this rapidly changing environment, and cheetahs are just one example. Their numbers are dwindling. In the car, Phyllis told Yukai, "Some parts of Africa haven't seen rain in 6 years, and many animals are now functionally extinct." Yukai had never heard of this before and said, "We don't often publicize this kind of thing in our country. While we know the greenhouse effect is irreversible, we don't fully understand the extent of the damage it's currently causing to humanity. China is well located, and the damage from the greenhouse effect won't threaten us for now. Besides, it's not affecting humans right now." The car drove along the bumpy road, the scorching sun baking the lowest surface, turning the once fertile soil into yellow sand that blew up at the slightest breeze. He had thought the crisis would only occur years in the future, but it had already begun. Especially with poachers still killing the few remaining animals. Phyllis gritted her teeth at this. The biggest enemy of animal protection organizations is poachers. With national governance, poaching will definitely decrease. Who knows, someday they'll even be protected, just like our giant pandas. That was all Yukai could say to comfort Phyllis. There were 4 people in the car, Yukai, Phyllis, and 2 patrol members. Poachers were a constant threat in this grassland, so they had to be on guard. For poachers, being caught was a death sentence, so they do anything to avoid being caught. The car passed through a herd of zebras. Zebras, can I ride them? That was a real question. Yukai had never seen anyone ride a zebra in his life. He had the skills granted by the system, so could he give it a try? Yukai, eager to try, stopped the car. "Don't do that. It's too dangerous," Phyllis advised earnestly. "Don't worry," Yukai said as he jumped out of the car. "I won't take any risks. I just want to go over and take some pictures." Even if his intimacy had tripled, there were still some dangerous things he couldn't do. Yukai knew this. He valued his life. Riding a zebra might cause a riot, but approaching them shouldn't be a problem. At least the zebras wouldn't treat him as an enemy. Zebras are also horses, so of course they can be ridden. However, Zebras are incredibly wild and difficult to tame, so no one chooses to tame them. Hey, don't be nervous, Yukai muttered, slowly approaching. Even the most aggressive animals are still animals, not madmen. If there's no danger, they won't lose their temper at a non-threatening creature. After approaching the herd, taking a few photos, and stroking the neck of a wild zebra, Yukai felt satisfied. Carefully retreating to the car, he excitedly pumped his fist and shouted, "Yes, yes, yes!" If he could get close to zebras, what about wild lions and tigers? Yukai began to have the urge to pet all animals. If Yukai had more time to interact with the zebras, he was absolutely certain he'd be able to sit on one and perform some simple maneuvers. This intimacy transformed most wild animals into approachable creatures like dolphins. Yukai shared the photos he'd taken with Phyllis, and the car continued on its way. Their goal was to find cheetahs. Phyllis was genuinely worried about Yukai, and even now, she was still terrified. Looking at the photos, she said, "Beautiful. You might be the best animal photographer ever." She'd never heard of anyone with such a strong affinity for animals before. The patrolman pulled into a forest and said, "Get off here. There's an abandoned house up ahead, built by a former tribal noble. You should be able to see cheetahs there." The scenery was stunning. Not far from where they got off was a house built on the water's edge, with a 3-meter-high observation deck above the water. Across the water lay the plains, a drinking spot for many nearby animals. From here, they could see animals drinking on the plains across the way. On the plains, a herd of elephants ate leaves, a family of African chimpanzees played in the grass, and a lion led his family near a watering hole. The lions didn't seem to notice the animals, apparently having had a full meal beforehand. Where there were lions, there weren't cheetahs. It seemed their trip had been in vain, but seeing a wild lion pride was a pleasant surprise. Yukai switched her long-range lens, zooming in on the lion's movements. Bang! Bang! Gunshots. Chapter 80 Poachers. 2 gunshots rang out from the grasslands across the river, sending the beasts scattering in all directions, running away from the sound of the gunfire. Phyllis immediately lowered her head and grabbed Yukai. "Keep your heads down, let's get out of here." "Go? Are we just going to leave like that?" Yukai was trying to figure out how to save the poachers. Phyllis explained, "We don't know how many there are right now, and those 2 shots were probably a warning. Don't take any chances. Get back to the car and notify the patrol." "Okay." Yukai now possessed strength and agility, but no fighting skills. "Very good, let's get out of here," Phyllis said. As they descended the observation deck, Yukai spotted a green Jeep parked in the grasslands in the distance. "I see 2 cars, Yukai told Phyllis. "2 cars?" Phyllis pondered for a moment, then gave up on the idea of a direct confrontation. They retreated. 2 armed patrolmen, one in front and one behind, protected Yukai and Phyllis. The gunfire continued. Yukai was furious, but truly helpless. Getting in the car and starting the engine, Phyllis slapped the car seat. "What a bunch of shit." She pulled out her phone and started contacting the WPSA patrol. She then called the Zambian National Parks Project Department, explaining the situation and asking them to send someone to investigate. Wildlife had definitely been killed. That was for sure. There were elephants and lion cubs in that area. A single tusk from an African elephant can fetch tens of thousands of dollars. Perhaps they were targeting the elephants. There used to be 20 million African elephants on the African savanna, but now there are only 250,000. "I've never understood why ivory is so expensive," Phyllis sighed. Yukai couldn't follow up on the topic. The largest export destination for ivory was the Far East. He himself couldn't understand why ivory products were so popular when there were so many works of art. They met up with a patrol on the way, turned around, and drove to the scene. Vultures could already be seen in the sky. African vultures are clever, they know that the sound of gunfire often signals a delicious meal. After crossing the river and reaching the grasslands they had seen earlier, the surrounding animals had scattered, leaving only 2 elephants lying on the ground. As the car drove over, they witnessed a gruesome scene. To obtain the ivory, poachers had slashed the elephant's face with a knife, leaving its trunk tumbling to the side and its face bleeding profusely. "Collect DNA," Phyllis ordered. "If the DNA collection reveals any unknown ivory and matches the DNA collected by the Wildlife Conservation Association, the owner of the ivory will be prosecuted." Just then, someone arrived with a report. 2 tire tracks have been found, likely from less than an hour. "Chase?" Phyllis's previous order to retreat wasn't out of fear, but rather a pointless retreat. Now that their forces were fully assembled, they naturally had to apprehend the poachers. The 3 vehicles followed the poachers' tracks, circling the park's perimeter and returning to Zambia via another exit, but this was a completely different route from the one Yekale had taken. The cities along the road, from the airport to the park, were relatively affluent, their environment reminiscent of China's 1980s era, while this area was even worse than a small Chinese village. The roads were still very good, built with foreign aid and not much different from national highways. On them, vehicles could pursue them at full speed, passing countless black people on bicycles resembling Chinese 28-inch bicycles, with 200 or 300 kilograms of fruit strapped to the back. Seeing Yukai's curiosity, Phyllis said, "This road spans north and south across Zambia. The further south you go, the more prosperous it gets. These people buy fruit here and then sell it south. Is it profitable?" Yukai asked. "No, only about $2 a day. That's a few yuan in Chinese. Riding a bicycle with hundreds of kilograms of cargo for a whole day, only to make a few yuan. This fits Yukai's pre-arrival imagination of Africa. How do we pursue them now?" the driver asked. Phyllis sighed and took a deep breath. "Let's go back." "Wait," Yukai suddenly said. "It should be the car up ahead." His vision was far greater than a normal human's, and he could clearly see the poacher's vehicle, a green Jeep, very similar to the 2 vehicles ahead. "Are you sure?" Phyllis asked. "We can stop them. If they try to escape, we'll be sure, but be careful, they have guns." Phyllis picked up the intercom and said, "Stop the green Jeep up ahead. Be careful, they might escape or attack with guns." The poachers could never have imagined that while they were poaching, members of the Animal Protection Association were watching and immediately called in support from a nearby patrol. Upon seeing the armed patrolman in the patrol car, the 2 vehicles panicked and tried to speed away, but this action only confirmed their identities. As they approached their car, the patrolman shouted, "Stop, or we'll shoot." The car in front began to slow down, but the Jeep behind them refused to surrender and pressed the accelerator, causing the 2 vehicles to collide directly. The patrol team quickly stopped and pointed several guns at the vehicles. Yukai and his companions arrived, but they were far away and didn't get out of the car. Yukai opened the window, ready to take a photo of the moment he found the ivory. Actually, Yukai's mission had already ended when he photographed the 2 elephants whose faces had been chopped off by poachers. It would have been even better if he could also photograph the poachers being apprehended. The situation between humans and animals was truly dire. Poachers in Africa were so rampant. If my photos and articles could help some people, or even just one person, understand and dissuade them from buying ivory, perhaps this would have saved an African elephant's life. The poacher ahead had confessed and was pinned to the car by patrolmen. Someone dragged several tusks, over a meter long, from the car and began walking towards Phyllis. Seeing the tusks, Yukai inexplicably thought of the claws of a white lion. "Ah," Yukai sighed, getting out of the car to take photos of the patrolman holding the ivory and the captured poacher. Back in the car, he flipped through the photos he had taken over the past 2 days. He could see the despair in the eyes of the injured animals. "Let's start writing the manuscript." Yukai has already thought of the title, "No Buying, No Killing." Our book has its first co-author, a kind citizen named Fang. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your donations. Please continue to support me. Please vote well so that I can work hard on my book. I've been locked up at home for more than half a month. That's it. I wish you all good health and hope that we can overcome the epidemic as soon as possible. Please recommend. Chapter 81, Leaving the WPSA Base. Having apprehended the poachers, they now headed back to the Zambia National Parks Project Office, an official Zambian organization responsible for maintaining peace and order within the national park. However, they only patrolled the inner, true grasslands. The outer wilderness areas had been completely abandoned. The WPSA now patrolled these areas. After driving for several more hours, they finally returned to the national park. The National Parks Project Office was more like a security bureau than a project office. The patrols were all serving soldiers, and there were over 10 patrol cars parked in the open space outside. The area wasn't as large as a wildlife conservation organization, and they didn't accept injured wildlife. After entering the project office, Yukai spotted a large amount of ivory at the back door, so he headed towards it. Phyllis grabbed Yukai's hand and asked, "Where are you going?" Yukai pointed to the back door. "There, Am I seeing things? A black man who looked like an official approached and said, yes, this is where the ivory from elephants poached in the past 2 years is stored. Many of them haven't been recovered yet. So, only recovered ivory was here? The black man who had been talking to Yukai walked to the back door, beckoned him in, and said, are you a foreign journalist? It would be a good thing if you could cover more of the plight of African elephants. He saw Yukai holding a camera and had fair skin, so he assumed he was a journalist. In reality, Yukai's current job was similar to that of an international journalist. Behind them was an open space the size of a basketball court, strewn with ivory and rhino horns, forming small hills, each 1 or 2 meters high. Is this from this year? Yukai asked. The black man nodded. About the same. If there's more, we'll destroy it. The ivory here should fetch a lot of money. Why not use the proceeds to buy new equipment or recruit more people to protect African animals? This was Yukai's idea. He detested the poachers who killed elephants for their ivory. But the situation had already occurred, and the elephants' deaths were irreversible. So, could the resources gained from their deaths be used to protect the dwindling populations? That can't be done, the black man said. First, according to previous data, the outflow of legal ivory hasn't reduced the number of elephants poached. Furthermore, there's so much ivory that it's impossible to sell it all. Protecting ivory is very expensive, and with so many people in our project team, we can't guarantee that no one will steal it. We also need to destroy the ivory to demonstrate our resolve to fight poachers to the end. Yukai took photos of the ivory. As always, Yukai could only use his pen and his photos to protect wildlife. Illegal poaching is rampant in both Africa and Asia. Countless wild animals in Asia are being driven to the brink of extinction for food. Phyllis took notes and returned with Yukai. The black official continued to urge Yukai to report on the current situation of African animals. What do you think? Phyllis asked Yukai. Yukai stretched his neck in the car and said, what else can I think? I'll go back and write the copy and submit it to my superiors. Then are you going back? Back. Yukai thought for a moment, then said, I want to travel more in Africa. I'm curious about the conditions of the residents of African countries. What? Phyllis was clearly surprised. Trust me, you don't want to do that, please. That's what I'm thinking, Yukai said, spreading his hands. He knew Africa was dangerous, but that shouldn't stop him from traveling. As long as Yukai kept his valuables safe, he shouldn't run into any danger. No, 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 Phyllis shook her head vigorously. Although the Chinese in Zambia are relatively safe, we can't let you take any risks. There have been a lot of protests in Africa in the past 2 years, and the locals are very dangerous. Then, can I go to the city? Phyllis had been here for a long time. If she felt it was really not possible, then Yukai would have to give up the idea of staying in Africa and fly back to China. As long as you don't go to places with a lot of poor people, there won't be so many robbers, Phyllis said. She really didn't want Yukai to go to an African city. She gave Yukai an idea. If someone wants to arrest you, give them our ID. An ID from an international organization should be more useful than a regular visa. I've got that in mind, Yukai said. It was already dark when they returned to the base, and Yukai spent the night writing a press release in his notebook. No buy, no kill. The trade in animal products stems from a demand, and that demand isn't irreplaceable. Excessive exploitation of animal resources is unacceptable. Luxury comes at the cost of lives. Please protect wildlife. After passing it to Rachel, Yukai was tired. Chenjai, who shared a room with Yukai, was already fast asleep, his snoring probably keeping away the summer mosquitoes. He slept. The next day, breakfast time. What? You're leaving so soon? Chenjai found it inconceivable. Why are you leaving right after arriving? We're supposed to stay for at least 6 months. The thought of this made his heart sour. He had no regrets about coming here. Yukai put down his bowl and spread his hands, suggesting, is it my fault? Phyllis said, Sean is the equivalent of a dispatched journalist. Now that your work is complete, you can certainly leave. Okay, after dinner, let's get to work. We even spotted a group of poachers nearby yesterday. How reckless. Song Liang patted Yukai on the shoulder and said, Alice, it's too soon. A few days won't be enough to experience the warmth of Africa. How about you leave a few days later? I'll take you. He leaned close to Yukai's ear and whispered, want to try some black girls? Do you have what it takes? Yukai couldn't complain and could only shake his head in denial. Whoever wants to go can go. After saying goodbye to his new colleague, Yukai returned to his room to pack his clothes. Rachel's email had also arrived. Dear Sean, I've received your document. I can't express my admiration enough. The theme is so good, I believe it could be the slogan for our association. I'll recommend this press release to major newspapers and magazines around the world. I'd like to meet you at the airport when you return. Rachel. A welcome is fine. But will China also publish this report? Could it be People's Daily? Or Youth Daily? I'm really looking forward to seeing my article published in a newspaper like this. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Kabwa Market. Before leaving, Yukai and Phyllis exchanged euros for some kwacha, the Zambian currency, which is converted to Chinese yuan at a rate of 2 kwacha to 1 Chinese yuan. Just before Yukai departed, Phyllis diligently explained the dangers of Africa to him, urging him to avoid visiting impoverished areas and stay out at night. It was Hong Wenlin who drove Yukai home. Watching the base receipt in the rearview mirror, Hong Wenlin remarked, I never expected you'd leave us so soon. Yukai quickly corrected her, that's a bit strange. I just finished this mission, not died. Ugh, you can't say that. Haha. Hong Wenlin had always struck Yukai as aloof, but today he was fine, his banter acting like a normal companion. Actually, you don't have to worry so much, Hong Wenlin said. Africa is pretty good now. There's no war or civil unrest, unlike in previous years. But there are scumbags everywhere. If someone asks you for money, just give them some. I heard the authorities were arresting Chinese people a while ago. Yukai asked. This was what Phyllis had mentioned earlier. Yes, it happened. The Chinese people all over Zambia were complaining, but no one was actually hurt. If anyone asks for ID, remember to show them ours. I understand. Phyllis told me. It's definitely not as easy out there as at home, isn't it? Yes, Yukai replied, gazing out the window at the scenery. They'd walked this section of the road on the way here. Chensei wasn't used to the climate, and he almost vomited bile on the way here. Everyone was laughing and chatting. But now the car was quiet, with only the occasional exchange between the two of them. The scenery in the wilderness remained the same year-round, and it didn't change much. After a 2-hour drive, they arrived at the Zambian city of Chibambo. Translated into Chinese, it was the first sizable city Yukai encountered since leaving the base. Let's stay here, Yukai said. Hong Wenlin said straightforwardly, okay, call me if you need anything. African cities had always struck Yukai as backward. This backwardness wasn't the kind of backwardness third and fourth tier cities had compared to Beijing and Shanghai, but rather the backwardness of the 1970s and 1980s compared to 2020. Other than that, everything else seemed fine. After Hong Wenlin left, Yukai searched on his phone for a place to stay. While traveling in Africa, you can have fun, but your accommodations must be safe. In fact, Yukai didn't even dare to hold a camera. As long as I'm poor enough, my African friends won't pick on me. Shouldn't they? In fact, no matter how poor a place is, with patience, you can find a hotel with good facilities. Zambia is still rapidly developing, and many people from other countries are doing business there. After finding a hotel, Yukai called the hotel, hoping they could pick him up. The upside of staying in a more expensive hotel is that the hotel will accommodate minor, not too excessive requests. However, this is only the case with most star-rated hotels. Some hotels can be a bit arrogant and won't do anything to help their customers. The hotel gave Yukai a time limit of half an hour. He had plenty of time to explore the area before he had to arrive at this intersection to meet the hotel driver. Yukai was standing by the road, flanked by houses and fields behind them. However, they weren't growing wheat, like crops, but bananas. The entire city had only one street, and it was home to a grocery store, a market, and even clothing stores. Just then, a car sped past Yukai, followed closely by a group of cyclists, hauling hundreds of pounds of cargo. Yukai couldn't help but move backward. Looking closely, he saw that they were clinging to the back of the truck, using its force to pull them forward. Was this to save energy? But wasn't it dangerous? Before the car had gone far, A bicycle swayed, and the rider lost their grip on the handlebars and fell to the ground. The bananas being transported were scattered all over the ground. However, the cargo was green, so the loss wasn't significant. The truck drove on without waiting for anyone. So they weren't in the same group? What if something happened in front of the truck and it suddenly braked? What if? Pentakill? Not only that, there were 7 or 8 bicycles hanging off the back of that truck. Before Yukai could figure it out, another truck like that passed by. To avoid the fallen rider in front, the cyclists had no choice but to let go and spread out. The truck accelerated forward, and the cyclists began pedaling. Yukai pulled his luggage away from the curb and headed into the market. He was too close to the curb, afraid he'd get covered in blood. The market here was quite large, with a large iron gate at the entrance. A sign above it read, Camp Door Market. The entrance was a mess, with vendors selling clothes and shoes, potatoes, and snacks. Yukai was curious about what snacks were, but then he saw black uncles stirring the food with their bare hands. Yukai's appetite instantly vanished. Walking inside, it became more formal, a huge shed with a market underneath. It was similar to many wet markets in China. Vendors displayed their wares on stalls, leaving walkways open for people to walk through. English mixed with local dialect echoed through the market, giving it the feel of a small Chinese wet market. Seeing something he didn't recognize on a stall, Yukai asked, "What's this?" "These are edible caterpillars. Cordyceps." Yukai picked one up and examined it carefully. It wasn't the cordyceps you see in the snowy areas, but a real caterpillar, a rather plump one at that. "Throw it away." "What about this?" Yukai asked. He noticed rocks on the stall, not for weighing anything down, but as if they were actually being sold, so he asked what it was. "This is dirt, but it's edible dirt." "Really, eating dirt?" Yukai pinched it and it was a little soft, like flour to the touch. But thinking of the pictures of many Africans with bulging bellies, Yukai didn't dare put this thing in his stomach. There were quite a lot of strange things here. Yukai felt very novel every time he saw something. Moreover, the fruits were unexpectedly cheap. The expensive ones were some goods imported from abroad. For example, toothpaste, toothbrushes, or towels. The labels all said they were made in China, but the price was 2 to 3 times more expensive than in China. At this time, an old lady walked past Yukai. She was carrying vegetables in both hands and a big bag of potatoes on her head. It looked like it weighed 20 kilograms, but it didn't affect the old lady's walking at all. How did she do it? Chapter 83 Cliff Hotel. After a quick stroll through the market, I decided it was almost time, so I went outside to wait for the hotel car. The road was still chaotic. Bicyclists had no idea what safe driving meant. They relied on trucks to get uphill, and didn't even brake when going downhill, going at a minimum of 80 miles per hour. They were like riding a car worth only a few bucks, but with the wind blowing through millions. A car arrived, and Yukai checked the license plate. Yes, it was right. It was a sedan, which was truly rare to see in Africa, as the terrain here favors off-roading, leaving cars confined to the roads. Much of the city ground was still bumpy and uneven. Yukai waved at the car, and it turned and stopped beside him. The driver opened the door and asked, "Mr. Sean?" "Yes." The driver was a young, thin, black man, around 20 years old, wearing a fluorescent t-shirt and a delicate watch on his left wrist. After Yukai got in the car and settled in, the driver said, "The hotel is quite far from here. Sir, please take a short break. Do you want to pay extra?" Yukai asked cautiously. "Haha, no, of course not. This is a hotel service." That was fine. However, Yukai didn't dare rest in the car. He kept the navigation system on his phone, checking it from time to make sure the driver wasn't taking the wrong route. But most of the time, he stared out the window. This was a very large city. The area near the market was probably the outskirts of the city. The further inland, the denser the crowds became, but this density was only relative. The streets were still few and far between. They ran parallel to each other, lined with houses. Beneath the eaves were small, makeshift stalls. Each was 5 square meters, separated by metal brackets and fiberboard, but most were vacant. "We're here," the driver said. Yukai looked up from his phone screen and out a window. They had reached the other side of the city. They had just traversed nearly the entire city, from the northernmost to the southernmost part. Opening the door and getting out of the car, Yukai took in the full view of the hotel. The three-story building sat on the edge of a cliff. Entering the hotel required passing through two doors, the first a code-protected door, the second locked and unlocked only after confirming your identity with the hotel. After seeing so many shabby buildings, it was a bit strange to suddenly encounter such a luxurious residence. The driver brought Yukai in sight and said, "If you need to leave, you need to check in at the front desk. If there's no one at the front desk when you return, call this number." He handed Yukai a business card. "I see. That's where I'm staying." The driver pointed to the left side of the second floor and said, "Room 201. It's the best room we have. If you like it, please remember to leave a good review." He bared his white teeth at Yukai. "Are you the owner?" Yukai asked. The black man shook his head and said, "My brother owns this hotel. I come over to help out when I'm free. The person you saw at the front desk just now is my sister-in-law. They're getting married." Yukai had found the hotel on an international travel website. The ratings there are more reliable than review sites, making them very important for those aspiring to stay in high-end hotels. "Okay, I'll go up and take a look." Yukai nodded and headed upstairs. If the hotel satisfied Yukai, he would definitely leave them a long review. There was no elevator, so Yukai ascended the stairs to the second floor. There were only 3 rooms on the second floor. The first one was to the right after the stairs, and there was a longer hallway to the left, with 2 more rooms. The lobby downstairs was a functional hall, not for living, so the only rooms they actually operated were the suites on the second and third floors. That was a bit too few. Opening the door, the room was completely odorless. A light floral scent filled the air. This room completely overturned Yukai's imagination of Africa. Upon entering, the first thing he saw was the floor-to-ceiling window opposite. It was enormous, framed by a wall of crystal clear, spotless glass. The wall was covered in wallpaper depicting an African sky, a vibrant azure blue with white accents. The bed was not square, but round, a beautiful and elegant shape. The overall design of the room was European and minimalist. The French windows opened onto a cliff, revealing a semicircular open space approximately 10 square meters in size. The edge of the cliff was protected by a guardrail. Inside, there were lounge chairs, a table, and a parasol. In one corner, a swing chair sat. Looking down from the cliff, it rose over 30 meters to a park. Large parks are common in Africa, but only a few of them house large wild animals and protected species. Yukai spotted monkeys and ostriches in the park below, and in the distance, several tall baobab trees stood tall. Standing on the cliff, he felt a feeling of ascending a height and gazing far into the distance, as described in ancient poetry. Yukai loved the design. He hadn't expected his favorite hotel today to be in Africa. Even the beachfront villas on Saipan hadn't impressed him as much. And the nightly rate was affordable, paying in US dollars online for just $145. After dropping off his luggage and making sure the door was secure, Yukai went downstairs. On the first floor, he met the black guy who had brought Yukai up, and greeted him. "Hi. Hey, Sean, what do you think?" he asked with a smile. "That's really cool." The black guy smiled proudly. "As long as you're satisfied, where are you going?" "I came out to see if there's anything to eat here." "Is there anything here?" "Of course," he said. "We have the best chef in the city, but the food is extra. What would you like to eat?" There was a room downstairs that looked like a restaurant, so they probably had a grave la carte service. A medium-rare roast beef tenderloin, grilled sausage, a fried egg, and a bottle of modern red wine. "Can you bring it up?" "All Western food? Do you want Chinese food?" "Huh?" Yukai looked at the young man with a slightly strange expression. The young man said embarrassedly, "It's so hard to meet a Chinese person. I want to show you my cooking skills. Is it okay for free? If not, I can ask the chef to make you Western food." Yukai felt that this young man must have a story, so he nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll make fried rice in a stir-fry. I'll wait for you in the restaurant." "Okay. Please wait." This sentence was in Chinese. I was definitely not fluent in it, but I could understand it. An African who can cook Chinese food and speak Chinese? It's quite interesting. Chapter 84, Huaxia and Dongba. The black guy quickly brought up his dish. To be honest, Yukai had been wondering if he could eat it, feeling a bit disgusted. But when he saw the dish, he realized it at least looked similar to fried rice back home, with shredded potatoes, which is probably one of the simplest dishes in Chinese cuisine. Holding a spoon, Yikai nodded repeatedly and said, "It looks good. Did you teach yourself?" The guy was excited and spoke in broken Chinese, gesturing with his hands. "I have a teacher from China. He said my cooking is pretty good, but I'm not sure how good it is yet, so I wanted to ask you to taste it." Yikai was surprised. Zambia is just a small country in Africa with a not very developed economy. Yikai understood people coming here to do business, but why would someone come here to teach? "Speak English so we can communicate better. Are you from China and working as a teacher in Zambia? By the way, I don't know your name yet. My name is Dongba, and my Chinese name is also Dongba. Our school has a Confucius Institute, and Mr. Zhu is a teacher there. He teaches us Chinese songs, ancient Chinese poetry, and classical Chinese dance." Yikai looked at Dongba. A towering black man, 1.9 meters tall, dancing classical dance? He subconsciously replaced the dancers dancing before the emperor in costume dramas with a group of black people, gracefully dancing in Hanfu, Chinese traditional costumes. Yikai's face turned pale. "Hi, Sean? Are you okay?" Dongba asked with concern. "I'm fine." Yikai paused his thoughts and inquired, "What is a Confucius Institute? Why do you want to learn classical Chinese dance?" Dongba dropped to a smile, thought for a long time, and said, "Confucius Institutes are places to learn Chinese culture. Classical dance, supposedly, we can experience the spirit of China through dance." He wasn't sure. Yikai pondered a question, then, with a shudder, abandoned the idea of asking Dongba to perform a classical dance. Fried rice and shredded potatoes were both homely dishes, and Dongba's was excellent enough. Yikai's own fried rice might not even be as delicious. Over dinner, the two chatted extensively. Dongba was friendly to the Chinese and curious about China. He said his biggest wish was to become an exchange student in China this year. He then showed Yikai his phone. "That's my Chinese girlfriend." "A Chinese girlfriend?" Tisk tisk. Yikai looked puzzled, but he couldn't help but lean over to take a closer look. Who on earth would find a black Zambian boyfriend? An online romance, anyway? A woman with black framed glasses, permed and dyed burgundy hair reaching her chest. She was a bit plump, but most African girls were like that. It must be the aesthetic gap between the two countries. Yikai didn't think there was anything remarkable about her. "We've known each other for 2 years. She's studying at a university in Liao Province." "Are you going to a university in Liao Province as an exchange student?" Yikai asked. "I don't know. I just want to be Chinese, anywhere," Dongba said with a look of anticipation. This kid, being given this by China. Yikai cut himself off mid-sentence. All he could say was that China's years of free aid to Africa had paid off. There must be many people living in Africa who love their country as much as Dongba does. "Your girlfriends are all in Liaoning, why don't you go?" "I have a girlfriend in Lusaka too." Lusaka is the capital of Zambia, and where Dongba currently attends university. The young man, only 19, already has 2 girlfriends. That's unacceptable behavior. Sigh. Yikai felt mixed emotions and wanted to go to the hostess to pay for the meal, but Dongba stopped him. "If I say treat, I must. You're my Dongba's friend, aren't you? Friends shouldn't be so polite. I'll take you somewhere fun tonight." "No. I'm not going." Yikai refused. Meanwhile, a guest called to ask for a place to stay. Dongba sighed and said goodbye to Yikai, saying he had to drive to pick them up. Was this just hospitality or something else? Yikai was bewildered. This was the strangest black African he had ever seen. After speaking to the receptionist, Yikai emerged, his phone and selfie stick in hand. He hadn't brought a camera, and he felt uneasy about walking alone through the streets of Africa carrying such expensive equipment. A phone was convenient. Not only was it compact, but it could also be used for calls and live streaming. And crucially, it wasn't expensive, so carrying it around wouldn't be a problem. Leaving the hotel, Yikai launched his live stream. This time, there weren't as many people in the room as last time, and Yikai hadn't posted any live stream announcements on Weibo. However, after the live stream began, those who followed him would receive a notification that he was online. "Hello everyone, this is Chibombo, Africa. I checked online, and it's already one of the 10 largest cities in Zambia." Yikai, dressed in a white short-sleeved shirt, jeans, and a white baseball cap, looked incredibly handsome from inside the live stream, like a celebrity on a magazine cover. So many women entered the room and started calling him husband. leaving Yukai unable to even grasp the serious questions. I can't quite see your question. What do you want to see in Africa? Yukai stood by the roadside, glanced around, and said, when I was driving here earlier, I saw a market selling African food. How about we go over and see what snacks they have? 666 African snacks. I've heard more about Indian snacks. Finally finding a comment he could answer amidst the pile of useless comments, Yukai said, hey. You've heard a lot about Indian snacks, right? Haven't seen African snacks, have you? Okay, I'll show you what they have. Yukai walked towards the street he had seen before, chatting with his friends about the past 2 days. Everyone knows I'm a famous photographer, right? No objection. A while ago, I joined the Wildlife Service International as a photographer and went with them to Liuba National Park in Zambia to capture some wildlife. That's why I came to the African grasslands. The place I showed you a few days ago is the WPSA Rescue Base in Liuba National Park. You should remember the white lion with its claws cut off, right? I remember. The little lion is so adorable. Yukai looked at the comments for a moment before continuing. But I never expected that the very next day I'd actually witness an elephant being poached. It was so tragic. Yukai still vividly remembers the scene. Protecting animals? Then never eat meat again. Seeing this comment, Yukai corrected himself. Don't misunderstand the WPSA. We're committed to protecting the environment and nature, protecting the wild animals on Earth, not domesticated animals. I also eat pork and beef. You have to distinguish between domesticated, farmed, and wild animals. Okay, now we're on the street I mentioned. Let's see what's available. Please vote for me. When you see this, is there a red thing in the lower left corner? Click on it, click all, click OK, and you can make your wish come true in 2020. Also, have you seen my cover? Doesn't it look good? Chapter 85 African Street Food. This street, on the mainland side, formed a T-junction. As Yukai approached by car, he noticed numerous street vendors. On the side of the intersection, a large open space opened up. A group of barefoot children were playing soccer. Some of the children's shouts were so shrill and thin that Yukai, with his excellent hearing, felt his ears begin to hurt. He frowned and said in Chinese, "It's unbearable. You probably don't understand how excruciating it is for someone with good hearing to hear such sounds up close. The snack bar is just up ahead, can you see it?" Yukai turned his phone to face the street, allowing the viewers in the live stream to also see what was happening. The street stretched for 200 or 300 meters and was bustling with activity, featuring large supermarkets, stalls selling colorful ethnic clothing, and, of course, snack stalls. Eating that pancake-like thing, the supermarket is so small, my husband is so handsome, sob, I'll punch that sob monster, keep yelling. Yukai sifted through the chaotic comments and said, Africa isn't like the mainland. This supermarket, while only the size of a neighborhood supermarket, is already the largest I've ever seen in Africa. English is the official language of Zambia, and while it has a bit of an African accent, Yukai could understand them as long as they didn't speak a local dialect. So, walking down this street, there was no language barrier. Yukai came to the nearest food stall, where they were selling something deep-fried with flour. Yukai had no idea if the flour was salted or not. Let's try one. Yukai switched the live stream to the rear camera, walked over, and asked, Boss, what is this? The black boss lady said, Pulled Rubens. Pulled Rubens. Seeing Yukai filming with his phone, the boss lady held up the fried food in her hand and said, Pulled Rubens. It was an untranslatable word. Yukai watched her make it and said, Oh, this should be fried dough. Just press the flour into dough and fry it in oil. It looks simple. Is it any different from fried dough back home? Confused, Yukai decided to buy one. How much? He asked. The boss lady pointed 2 fingers and said, 2 kwacha. I'll buy one, Yukai said, then turned to the people in the live stream. Don't need me to translate, right? Kwacha is the Zambian currency. It's basically 2 kwacha to 1 yuan in Chinese currency. Only 1 yuan each, so cheap. Isn't this fried dumpling wrapper? No sesame seeds, no soul. Yukai watched as the boss lady picked out a piece of dough from the prepared dough and fried it in the boiling oil. The oil was scalding hot, and the dough became crispy almost visibly. The proprietress scooped up the pancakes with tongs and placed them in a basket. Then, she packed the dough in a small plastic bag and handed it to Yukai. Alright, Yukai said, paying her and preparing to try some. With the camera focused on him, Yukai said, "Okay, this is my first African street food experience today. Let me give it a try." He took a bite, and the fried dough crackled. He took a few thoughtful bites, and when everyone in the live stream was asking about the taste, Yukai finally said, "Honestly, it's a little dry. Maybe it's just out of the wok, so there's a lot of oil." As for the taste, Yukai said after a moment's thought, "It's just like what I saw someone say in the comments, fried dumpling wrappers, only thicker. Nothing special. Let's try something else." A few steps further and you'll find a new food stall. The vendors here, especially those selling snacks, are mostly women. Yukai rarely sees African men selling small goods in the market. The stall was a vertical glass case with 2 levels, the upper level held food, the lower for seasonings. The side facing the street was entirely glass, allowing for a clear view inside. "What's this?" Yukai asked the female owner. "Crispy balls," she said. The snacks were about the size of ping pong balls, deep-fried yellow. The owner seemed camera-challenged, so Yukai didn't point his phone at her. Instead, he pointed directly at the glass case and asked, "Is this made of flour too?" "Yes." "Then I'll have one of these." "How much?" "2 kwaches." "Another $1. Give me $10, and I can eat my fill here." Am I the only one who sounds a bit like Chakra? The owner placed a few crispy balls in a round plastic container, moved it to the lower level, spooned a little sugar on top, and handed it to Yukai. Yukai asked, Okay. So simple?" Yukai took it. Because the selfie stick was a combination of a box and a toothpick, it was difficult to operate. So he held it with his left fingers, picking up the plastic bowl. Holding the toothpick in his right hand, he scooped out a crunchy ball and ate it. "This tastes great," Yukai said to the live stream, his eyes narrowed slightly. "I think coming here to enjoy the food is a high-risk job. It's probably not a good idea for you to eat for free." He placed the half-eaten crunchy ball in the bowl and continued, "How should I describe the taste? A little sour and a little sweet. After all, they added sugar, but that sourness. I think it's a bit like the sourness of fermented dough. Maybe their crunchy balls are naturally like that, but forgive me, I just can't handle food like this." This would have been fine in the past, but now Yukai has very high standards for food texture and flavor. Any delicacy that survives in the market must have its own unique characteristics, but this one was clearly spoiled. It was sour and sweet, and anyone in China would definitely get diarrhea if they ate it. Yukai had no choice but to throw the crunchy ball away. "Let's look somewhere else." Yukai found a place to throw away the unfinished food in his hand and walked towards the food he had noticed before. "There are 2 stalls here. Both of them are things I just noticed and I really want to try. One is fried bananas, which should be a very authentic African snack, so Yukai really wants to taste the fried bananas. The other thing that interested Yukai was a snack that was shaped like a zongzi. Like the zongzi in China, it is wrapped in green leaves. The zongzi displayed on the stall now is dull in color, which is a sign of being boiled in boiling water. Which one should I eat? He thought. Both are very interesting. Yukai took a look at the live broadcast room and made up his mind, then let's eat this thing that looks like a zongzi. He walked to the place where the suspected zongzi was sold and said, "Good afternoon, Mom, what is this?" Chapter 86 Fried Bananas. The black woman peeled an onion and looked at Yukai in confusion, seemingly having trouble understanding what he was saying. Yukai pointed at the snack and said, "Here, what's in this?" "It's corn." "Corn? Could it be corn cake?" "That's what they call it in Sichuan province. They grind the corn kernels, mix them with baking soda, sugar, and eggs, wrap them in leaves, and steam them for an hour to create this fragrant corn cake." "So how much is this?" Yukai asked. 2 kwaches. Another $1. That's a bit cheap. Yukai hadn't seen the other items before, so he couldn't estimate their prices, but this corn cake was definitely not available in China. "Give me one," Yukai said. "African rice dumplings, the pot is so clean, much cleaner than in India. I think the young man is very handsome." The woman finally put down her onion and began preparing something for Yukai. She brought out a plate and scooped a spoonful of red chili sauce from the pot beside her. Then, using a spoon, she scooped out a spoonful of something resembling a mixed sauce from another pot. But it wasn't mixed sauce, it just looked about 5 points similar. Then, she grabbed a handful of the previously chopped onions and placed them on the plate. "Do you want to cut it?" the old lady asked. "Go ahead." She finally began to peel off the green outer layer of the zongzi. The black lady had said it was made of corn, but after peeling off the outer layer, the meat inside was white. It really looked like the zongzi in China. After cutting it into small pieces and placing it on a plate, the old lady handed the plate to Yukai and said, "There are stools over there, go sit down and eat." "Okay, thank you." Fortunately, there were tables and chairs, otherwise Yukai really wouldn't know how to eat it. Unless he gave up a live broadcast, or carried a selfie stick, no matter where the camera was pointed. He placed his phone on the table, facing himself, and prepared to taste this dish. Looking at the food, Yukai swallowed his saliva and smiled wryly at the audience, saying, "Even though it feels quite disgusting, why am I still drooling?" He held a small piece and dipped it in some chili sauce and another unknown sauce. After a long hesitation, he finally put the thing into his mouth with a reckless abandon. Having eaten spoiled food before, Yukai prepared for this culinary adventure with the expectation of a culinary delicacy. Surprisingly, this thing was quite delicious. It had a slight corn flavor, but the texture was very similar to zongzi, a rice dumpling, but much softer and more glutinous than zongzi, a bit like a steamed bun that had been pressed. Furthermore, the chili sauce was delicious, and the unknown sauce also had the flavor of lao ganma. Yukai asked the woman, "Is this made of rice?" "Didn't I tell you? It's corn," the woman said. Could it really be corn? But how could corn have such a texture? Yukai couldn't imagine. Perhaps they had added something he had never tasted before, so he couldn't tell what the ingredients were. Yukai quickly finished the snack and commented to the live stream, "This snack is quite delicious, exceeding my expectations. Let's check out the fried bananas for the last one." He'd already eaten by 9 o'clock, and he couldn't eat much, so he decided to stop and find something that interested him. Forget about things like hand-pulled dirt or fried sweet potatoes with chili peppers. Picking up his selfie stick, Yukai walked towards the fried banana stand and said, "This last one. After all, I'm not a big eater. I just ate before going out. Only a little, my cat eats more than you do." Most of the street was filled with food, and seeing Yukai give up after trying only a few snacks, the audience was naturally unhappy, but they couldn't sway Yukai's will. Aside from thanking the person who gave him the TV when he was happy, Yukai didn't even bother to say thank you. "What is this, Mom?" The owner of the fried banana stall flipped the bananas in the frying pan with a slotted spoon and said, "Alo gu, banana." Oh. Yukai thought about how to translate it, and finally said directly to the audience, "Did you understand banana? Actually, this is fried banana. It also has many side dishes, and grilled fish." He didn't know how to translate alo gu. The phone slowly scanned the other things on the stall, including dried fish, pickles, and chili sauce. Chili sauce should be the most important condiment for African snacks, and it tastes very good. Many tasteless snacks only need to add a little chili sauce, and the African flavor will immediately come out. Yukai watched others take a ready-made portion and leave, and he said to the audience, "Then let's try it, okay? Add all these side dishes, just like the locals eat it." He walked up to the boss and said, "Mom, I want all the bananas, grilled fish, peppers, onions, and cucumbers. All of them? How much are the bananas? Just do what you did just now. Just look at the price paid by the customer who just left." The black owner understood and said, 15 kwacha. Finally seeing something that cost more than 2 kwacha, it's really rare. Okay. Just one of those. I'll sit over there and wait for you." These food stalls all had tables and chairs, some with 1 or 2, others with 5 or 6, set up under the sheds they had built. Putting his phone away, Yukai sat on a small stool, waiting for the owner to serve his food. The black woman sitting next to him asked Yukai, "Are you here for tourism?" "Yes," Yukai replied. Soon the owner brought the food up, also on a plate. On the left were fried bananas and side dishes, and on the right was a fried fish, about the size of a palm. Yukai searched for a moment and asked, "Excuse me, do you have a fork?" "Yes, do you need one?" The woman Yukai had just spoken to said, "Eat with your hands." "No, absolutely not," he said firmly. The boss found a fork for Yukai, dipped it in the oil, and handed it to him, saying, "Here you go." Yukai took it awkwardly. "Why dip it in the oil? To disinfect it?" Yukai shook his head helplessly and said, "I'd better grab it with my hands and wash it later." Seeing Yukai grab it with his hands, the auntie kindly reminded him, "It's very hot." Okay, okay. Yukai carefully picked up a piece of banana dipped in hot sauce, placed it in front of the phone, and said, "This is what you just saw, fried bananas. The color looks pretty good. It smells nice, too. Let's taste it." After the temperature of the fried bananas dropped, Yukai took a bite, nodded slightly, and said, "You can say it's crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. It tastes pretty good, but it still has a little bit of sourness. This sourness should be the taste of the banana itself. It's worth noting that the chili is very spicy, which is more to my taste." Chapter 87 My Travel Life. After tasting the fish, Yukai frowned. "This fish, how should I describe it? The meat is very tough. I think it must have been left out too long after frying. There's also a slight fishy smell, perhaps from improperly cleaning the innards. It's also a bit bitter, perhaps the gallbladder is broken. This one must have simply cleaned the innards and fried it. Forget it, I won't eat this fish. Fish gallbladders are poisonous," he said to the audience. "Everyone, I still want to remind you that fish gallbladders are poisonous. I know in China, fish gallbladders are said to clear heat and detoxify, cleanse the liver, and improve eyesight. Many people use it to make alcoholic drinks, but the gallbladder's toxicity isn't easily destroyed by boiling water or alcohol. So even if you steam the gallbladder or mix it with alcohol, it can still cause poisoning. So if you're interested in this, try to eat less to avoid it." Younger generations in China aren't used to drinking alcoholic drinks, so they haven't paid much attention to it. And since older generations aren't online, many people still don't know about this. While most fish have relatively mild gall toxicity, it's best to avoid such dangerous situations. The fish was the most expensive, costing 10 kwacha, but surprisingly, it was the most unpalatable. Yukai finished off his fried bananas, fried to a crisp and then coated in chili sauce. They were truly delicious. After finishing a plate of fried bananas, Yukai wiped his mouth with a tissue and said, "I actually really like African chili sauce. I'll see if I can bring some for you to try when I return to China." That's enough for the live stream. I'm going back to the hotel to rest. It's the dry season in Africa, and the temperature outside is very high. No. So little time for live streaming. I want to see the hotels in Africa. I'm freezing in China. As expected, it's Africa. The temperature is so high. Yukai, holding his selfie stick, turned back to the hotel and said, "The weather here is different from China. Here we have two main seasons, dry and rainy. The temperature in Africa is also very low during the rainy season. Now it's dry land, like summer in China, so of course it's hot," he said with a laugh. If you're afraid of the cold, then traveling abroad is definitely a good idea. There are actually warmer places in China right now, like Sanya, where it's not very cold. The hotel wasn't far from here, just a 10-minute walk, and Yukai decided to show them around. After all, the rooms were truly stunning. "Let me show you my hotel," Yukai said, walking towards the hotel, introducing it to the audience. "I've been to quite a few places, and this is the most satisfying hotel I've ever been to. I'm really looking forward to sleeping here." Arriving at the hotel, Yukai entered the code to open the first door and rang the bell for the second, which required waiting for someone to open it from the inside. This hotel has two main doors. The code door is the first. This one can only be opened from the inside. It's a bit of a hassle, but it definitely made me feel safer in Africa. But this hotel has more surprises for me. The door opened. Yukai nodded to the black woman who opened the door and headed towards his room. He didn't see Dongba on the way. He probably was studying hard, working towards his trip to China. After opening his room, Yukai praised every detail of the decor, most notably the balcony. What Yukai longed for most now was to sit on the balcony lounge chair, enjoying the breeze blowing in from the cliffs. If only there were a goblet filled with red wine on the table, the feeling would be no less impressive than sitting by the sea. He shone his phone at the grasslands below the cliffs and said, "I looked at the map. It should be Sakhanian National Park down there. There are no elephants or giraffes here, but monkeys and ostriches are common. It's essentially a zoo. People really like the feeling of being up high. This balcony is 30 meters above the park, and as far as I can see, there aren't any buildings or trees in the park taller than this balcony." Standing there, Yukai suddenly recalled a line from an ancient poem, "I'm not afraid of the clouds obscuring my view, because I'm at the highest point." Placing his phone on the balcony table, Yukai sat and chatted with netizens about animal protection, but he could only offer his own insights, mostly reading the online discussions. He had originally joined the Animal Protection Organization to obtain a universal visa, but now he truly admired the volunteers. After witnessing the tragic plight of poached animals, Yukai finally understood why so many people continue to invest in wildlife conservation. The sins committed by humanity will ultimately be repaid by humanity. Across the African continent, over 10 countries away, Saoirse was also watching Yukai's live stream in Ireland. "He's quite cute," she said with a smile. Her phone rested on a corner of her desk, and her computer was already cluttered with notes and books. Catching up on 2 years of missed schoolwork was going to be difficult. It had been 3 days since she returned, and Saoirse had only spoken to Yukai on the phone once. She had a lot of homework to review every day, and violin practice in the mornings. She played many instruments, and violin was her most proficient. She wanted to be a performer. Since becoming a teacher wasn't an option, she'd start as a student. Irish society was different from that of China. Even in a country with widespread education, it was difficult for a high school graduate to find a decent job there. The same was true for performing, unless she was willing to continue her small band, hoping it would eventually become nationally renowned. It's impossible not to talk about this kind of thing. By the time you achieve true success and fame, who knows how many years have passed. It's better to follow Yukai's advice. While you're still only 20, spend a few years quietly studying, and then use the rest of your time to sprint towards your dreams. On the screen, Yukai remained silent, his eyes softly scanning his phone. Perhaps he was reading the comments, she wondered. Saoirse stretched and retrieved a book from the table. It was the book Yukai had given her before he left. It was titled Shooting While Walking, Travel Photography in 2019. Saoirse didn't understand Chinese yet, so after returning to China, she skimmed through the first 2 chapters using online translation software. She opened the book to the first page, the prologue. It read, "I started traveling alone at the age of 23. Looking back, my travels began that day when I stood at the office and told my boss I was quitting. The essence of travel lies in overcoming fears and leaving behind the familiar and safe everyday life. My journey began when I took that first step into a strange world." Chapter 88. Do you know Kung Fu? After 3 days in Chibombo, Yukai set off for Lusaka, the capital of Zambia. Lusaka was already a modern city, with well-developed public facilities like streets and buses, but it was still underdeveloped, still giving off a sense of being behind the times. Yukai breathed a sigh of relief when he disembarked from the long-distance bus. Unlike in China, buses here didn't have air conditioning. He had to open the windows for fresh air. Furthermore, the bus was packed with people and the weather was hot. The bus was like a steamer, giving Yukai a free, odorous sauna, not to mention how sour and refreshing it was. His hotel was 2 kilometers from the drop-off point, so Yukai dragged his suitcase along the highway looking for a car. Soon, a taxi driver approached and asked where he was going. Before he could even say his destination, the driver snatched the backpack from his hands. "How much to eat, look?" Yukai had no choice but to ask. The driver grinned, revealing a set of gleaming white teeth, and said, 200. Yukai politely took the backpack from him and drove off, dragging the suitcase. The driver didn't bother Yukai any further, which actually surprised him. After walking a few hundred meters, farther from the station, Yukai finally stopped a taxi. "How much is it to eat?" Yukai asked. 85 kwacha. It was a deal. This was more than double the price of the previous taxi. Yukai figured a little less wouldn't be a big deal, but he didn't bother to bargain anymore. Tourists visiting Lusaka usually stay in Idkl, a new community built only a few years ago, with amenities unmatched anywhere else in Lusaka. The ride from the station to Idkl took countless turns. It wasn't that the driver was deliberately taking a longer route. Yukai had been studying the map. The buildings here were low and densely packed, the roads like a series of overlapping spider webs. Many of the older buildings weren't carefully planned when they were built, which is why Lusaka's buildings are so densely packed. Once inside Idkl, the road suddenly widened. The driver dropped Yukai off near a hospital under construction. Across the road was a hotel called the Unity Hotel. It wasn't clear if the name had anything to do with Huaksha. Just as he was about to cross the street, 3 black men approached, grinning at him. "Chinese. Small Chinese. What are you doing here? Looking for trouble?" Yukai tensed. If he had to deal with 3 men, it shouldn't be a problem, right? "Oh." The black man, The leader standing in front of Yukai saw him take a defensive stance and yelped, striking a boxing stance, shaking his fist and shaking his head. Huh? You know kung fu? You wanna hit me? Hey, I'm hungry, give me some money. Two more men stood beside Yukai, obscuring his escape route. Hey, buddy, how about 100 yuan? Not much? I wouldn't even give you 100 yuan. While thinking this, Yukai was actually considering spending money to avoid disaster. After all, 100 kwaches was only about 50 Chinese yuan. There's no need to cause trouble in a foreign country. While he was still hesitating, a person ran over from the side of the hospital. Yukai didn't see her face clearly, but he thought it was a girl, not tall, only about 1.5 meters. 100 yuan, for you, she said to the leading black man. The man was carrying a blue school bag and wearing a loose purple short-sleeved shirt that covered his gray crop pants, revealing only a little bit of his calves. What kind of plot is this? A beauty saves a hero? Or maybe a bear? Yukai laughed at himself. After returning, he had to learn some fighting skills, otherwise it would not be safe to travel alone relying on strength and speed. Hello? Are you from China? The woman asked Yukai in Chinese. The black man had already left, talking and laughing, and the woman was packing her blue school bag facing Yukai. Yes, I'm a Chinese tourist. After packing, she zipped up her clothes, swung them behind her, and said as a reminder, if they ask you to borrow money here, you must lend it to them, even if they haven't paid it back several times. Yukai said, I'll pay you back first. No need, she said. It's just small amounts. Just be more careful next time. They love to pick on Chinese people who look weak. They don't even dare to mess with white people. Chinese people who look weak? I'm afraid I could kill them with one punch. I get it, Yukai replied. These few people immediately lowered Yukai's impression of Africa. How low did it go? Have you ever seen someone extort you in broad daylight, in a crowded place? If the person who came to help was African, it would be fine, but she was clearly Chinese. This was a rapidly developing new community, with the best hotels, the best residential complexes, the best library in all of Zambia, and the largest hospital under construction right now. To be extorted in such a place? Yukai was incredulous. Traveling here? Where are you staying? At the hotel across the street, Yukai said, pointing to the Unity Hotel across the road. I think the naming style has a touch of our great China. Is it opened by one of our people? Holy crap! A tycoon! She exclaimed in surprise. The hotel was a bit pricey. Yukai chuckled dryly, rubbing his neck. It was the first time anyone had called him a tycoon. He didn't think the word tycoon was a derogatory term at all. This was built with Chinese aid, and this hospital was almost entirely built with Chinese aid. It'll probably be the largest hospital in Zambia for a few years after it's built. My name is Getaway, and you're mine. My name is Yukai. How about I treat you to lunch? I'd be embarrassed otherwise. Getaway smiled and said, that's great. I'm just getting off work. The restaurants in this area are all very good. Yukai pointed to a barbecue restaurant in the distance and said, that's it. Everywhere has wealthy areas, and this should be considered one of Lusaka's wealthy areas. It's unknown how the three thugs got here. The barbecue restaurant is very large. After entering, there is a service counter in the front. If you count carefully, there may be more than 100 sets of tables and chairs, in addition to the seats by the window facing the street. Turn a corner, and there are tables further inside. Would you like to sit by the window? Yukai asked. Whatever. Then here. Yukai settled down and sat on one side of the table. This is a two-person seat by the window, just right for two people. After Yukai and his friends came in, a black girl in the restaurant followed them with a menu. After they sat down, she handed the menu to Yukai. Yukai pushed it to Getaway and said, you order something. I've only been here for a short time and I don't know what's delicious. P.S. Please be sure to recommend me. I'm asking for your recommendation vote. It's very important. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Street Performer. The barbecue was no different from that in China. The meat was very fresh and well processed, without any smell of mutton. Joey ordered slices of pork and beef, as well as a bunch of beef and mutton skewers. When the meat was placed on the grill and roasted to release oil, making a sizzling sound, Yukai subconsciously licked his lips. The geographical conditions in Africa are suitable for the growth of many plants, so the taste of various condiments and sauces is very good, which made Yukai experience the fun of eating skewers in China. Joey said that he had been working in Zambia for 2 years, so Yukai asked, "So you're considered a non-drifter? What do you mean by non-drifter?" She shook her head and said, "It's just a job away from home. I'm curious about you. Zambia doesn't have many tourist attractions, and this is the first time I've seen Chinese people traveling here. I came here to work, too, but now that my job is done, I want to travel." Joey took a sip of his soda and said, "That's more like it." Over barbecue and toast, the two of them reminisced about Joey's 2 years as a non-drifter. Yukai was a great listener, he never tired of hearing stories. She and Yukai graduated the same year. After graduation, she was thinking of working somewhere far away from home. Then she saw a job ad for Zambia, so she signed up. The salary was 14,000 Chinese yuan, but Joey was pretty good with money, saving at most 4,000 yuan a month. Better than me, anyway. He ended up in such a difficult place right after graduation. Yukai got a job through campus recruitment, but resigned after being annoyed by his boss a few times. "I was so young back then. No matter how difficult things were, they weren't as difficult as Joey's in Africa." Half an hour later, Joey's shift was almost over. He said, "Well, I have some things waiting for me at the investment bureau, and I still have 3 documents to complete. I'm leaving now." "Fine, go ahead. See you again." Yukai waved Joey off and continued to eat some lamb skewers before getting up to pay the bill. Joey worked at the hospital where they'd met earlier, or rather, with the A team. Her main duties were to run paperwork, liaise with relevant departments, and handle customs matters. Yukai wasn't afraid of heavy tasks, but rather of messy ones. He definitely couldn't handle the kind of work Joey was doing. Carrying his bag, Yukai arrived at the Unity Hotel. The Unity Hotel wasn't particularly special, not as distinctive as the Cliff Hotel, but it had all the necessary amenities: hot water, air conditioning, a TV, a computer. The rooms were spacious, and a standard room rivaled the luxury suites of some hotels. He put his belongings away at the hotel and washed off the sweat he'd worked up in the car. Refreshed, Yukai emerged from the bathroom and decided to go for a walk. Lusaka has few places you could call tourist attractions, but when you're in a new place, you always want to see the world. Staying in the hotel all the time is worse than just playing with your phone at home. Across from the Unity Hotel is the hospital where Joey works. This largest hospital in Zambia is set to open in 10 days, but about 10% of the medical supplies haven't arrived yet. Joey's job is to liaise with customs and get this shipment of medical equipment delivered as quickly as possible. Yukai saw her busy figure as he came downstairs. Basking in the sun, she inspected each piece of equipment as it arrived. Seeing Yukai, she waved across the road and continued checking the goods against the manifest. Walking down the street, Yukai spotted a street performer performing on the side of the road. There were many onlookers, many filming with their phones. Feeling at ease, Yukai pulled out his phone and started a live stream, letting his viewers see the streets of Africa. "Look, what did I find?" A live streamer, Yukai was speechless. The live stream had just started, and few people were watching. A few isolated comments slowly drifted across the screen. "I've arrived in Lusaka, the capital of Zambia. There's a street performer I met on the street. Don't talk for now, just watch the show." There were 4 performers, but only one was the main character at any one time. The performer was a very thin man, his hands tucked into his clothes. He clutched his stomach from behind, making it look as if he had no arms. If he walked down the street like that, many would think he was disabled. Then he grasped his left elbow with his right hand and licked his right elbow with his tongue. "Wow!" The onlookers cheered and applauded. Yukai also exclaimed inwardly, "Wow! How does one practice to be able to lick their elbows?" Another person took over, spinning and throwing his hat high into the air, hands behind his back. Strangely, the hat stayed in the air for about 3 seconds before falling, caught on his head. Yukai applauded in amazement, and everyone in the live stream was stunned. It wasn't until the performer threw the hat a 3rd time that Yukai finally figured out the trick. The hat throwing technique was similar to spinning a basketball. When the hat landed above their head, they blew upwards with their mouths, causing it to hover in the air. What kind of magic trick was this? Did you get it? Yukai asked his audience. What just happened? What? Aren't we watching street magic? They were blowing air. Haha, you never expected that, Yukai beamed. The netizens hadn't noticed, and he was the only one who cracked this almost magical act. The four performers suddenly lined up. The first person tossed the hat into the air, and the three in front, without even looking up, blew air upwards, sending the hat to the fourth head. The audience applauded, and Yukai joined in the applause. The livestream screen kept shaking. Yukai's audience was probably the most unremarkable group of people on Bilibili livestreams. It was enough not to thank them for their gifts. The host didn't even take his livestream seriously. He never had a set time. He often went online late at night, leaving many of Yukai's fans to watch the replays. Yukai gave the performers some money. So there are still men in Africa who earn their own livings through hard work. Walking down the street, past an intersection, we arrived at the University of Zambia. It's a huge university, presumably with a native park inside. Look at that. That's the Huawei Group logo. Seeing Huawei Group in Zambia? It was a 3-story building, its logo adorning the right wall, with a red Chinese flag atop. Surprised, Yukai walked past Huawei Group's overseas offices and spotted another Chinese company. A heavy industrial enterprise? A state-owned enterprise. They have overseas branches too? Yukai suddenly saw a sign, so he didn't continue walking and turned back. It was a red sign that said no photography allowed. P.S. Keep recommending these books. Emperor Gu Conquers 3,000 Worlds, Driving a Taxi in the American Comics World, and The Godly Rich Starts with Wishes Fulfilled are all PY deals from some of my author friends. Please, let me go to Sanjiang next week. Recommendations please. Chapter 90 Gold Diggers in Africa. Yukai had seen this kind of sign in many restricted areas. Even taking a photo would be scrutinized, let alone Yukai live streaming. If caught, he'd likely go to jail. However, Yukai couldn't just walk through with his phone. He'd definitely be stopped before he even got close and taken away for questioning. Returning to the intersection, Yukai chose a different street. Once outside the Idlok neighborhood, the city's streets were countless. Some couldn't even be called streets, just long alleys. These streets were filled with small stalls run by locals, more numerous than formal shops. Everyday essentials like pots and pans, oils, salt, sauces, and vinegar could be purchased there. And the prices were incredibly low, far better than at supermarkets. Consequently, these streets attracted a large crowd of shoppers, creating a dense flow of people. Yukai had a keen eye and had already spotted quite a few thieves here. He had to be extra vigilant here, as foreigners like him were a favorite target. Fortunately, the sight of Yukai live streaming his phone had dissuaded many from targeting him. The streets of Zambia are really dangerous, Yukai said to the live stream audience in Chinese. Just now, on that street, at least 5 people were staring at me. You're such a dramatic actor, how did you come to that conclusion? I felt their gazes. Since no one would believe him if he told the truth, Yukai just told it. At least, nothing happened in the end. This also solidified his resolve to learn self-defense after returning home. Lusaka's architecture is simply stylish. Its residents have begun to escape poverty, and most have some education. In fact, for many black people, the Bible or the Quran is far more important than math, physics, and chemistry. Consequently, it's common to encounter people who lack common sense yet believe they are children of God. In a city like this, finding something that satisfies Yukai is difficult, even more so than in a small town. Finally, on an overpass, he spotted an elderly black man beating an African drum. His face was heavily wrinkled, and he looked to be in his 80s. African drums, primarily used in West Africa, have a history of thousands of years. As one of the earliest musical instruments, percussion instruments were once a means of communication in Africa. So, a good drummer's performance is like a conversation. Yukai sat on the edge of the overpass, watching an old man beating his African drums, and said, perhaps Africans wouldn't have imagined that their instrument would become so popular in China, becoming a must-have in ancient towns. There are several ancient towns near Chengdu, and whenever you visit one, you'll see people playing African drums, singing folk songs, or attracting tourists to their shops. In fact, Yukai's favorite part of this trip to Africa was the animals. While in the small town, he had been eager to visit the capital of Zambia, But with every expectation came a great deal of disappointment. Lusaka is rapidly becoming an industrial city. But in doing so, it's been throwing away so much of its own things in the rush. Yukai stood up and headed towards the hotel. No more live streaming, I'll go home tomorrow, Yukai said. He turned off the live stream and headed back the way he'd come. Suddenly, someone asked, "Handsome guy, want to sell phone?" 1,000 yuan. It was a small stall at the end of the overpass. The table was empty, covered with a green tarp. A man sat behind the stall, and two others were selling cell phones. "Are you guys here to repair phones?" The man who had just spoken to Yukai shook his head and said, "Selling phones. Do you need any? They're all good phones from China, ranging from a few hundred to over 1,000. He held out his hands, motioning Yukai to take a look. But he never reached for anything like that, fearing he'd be stuck if he took it, so Yukai just glanced. Huawei P20, Transsion, Xiaomi 10. How much? Seeing that he seemed to be attracting business, the man smiled broadly and held up his phone to introduce it. "This is a Chinese phone, 1,000 yuan. Kwacha." Yes. He was holding a Huawei P20. Did that mean it was only 500 Chinese kwacha? Yukai actually wanted to look at other phones, but he felt that if he didn't buy anything, he'd have to delve into them too deeply. What if these black people tried to force a sale? So he waved and walked away. Really cheap, must it be refurbished? Yukai thought to himself. After spending half a day with his live-stream friends, the weather was unbearably hot. Yukai returned, showered, and then stretched out on his bed. Just as he was about to take a nap before getting up for dinner, he suddenly remembered something. He snatched up his phone from his pillow and bought a plane ticket back home for tomorrow. Done. A corner of Zambia. In a small alley called Huaksha City. Many Chinese people have come here to Zambia to pan for their fortunes. Almost all Chinese living abroad have such a place, and the cohesiveness of the Chinese people is vividly demonstrated here. Jo Wei was having dinner with her Chinese friends. 7 or 8 of them gathered around a large round table, laden with Chinese cuisine. They were all classic Chinese dishes like shanchang dum rabbit, mushroom and water duck clay pot, pig's trotters stewed with kelp, and stir-fried lamb chops. Cheers, and I wish Xiaozhou a speedy recovery. I'm not ill at all, Jo Wei said, feeling a bit amused. He's just had a slight fever lately and needs daily injections. It's nothing serious. After a beer, she said, "By the way, I met a Chinese guy at the hospital entrance at noon. He looked like he was traveling, and he was surrounded by 3 thugs. Is he okay?" A chubby man asked. "No, he probably didn't have money for dinner, so he just asked for some money." The chubby man shook his head and sighed. "Although we have some discrimination against black people, I've never seen anyone do anything to offend them. But if they only discriminated against us and didn't rob, kill, or rape us, the world's crime rate would be reduced by half." Another man wearing glasses said, "Yes, Mr. Lee, I heard that a black servant stole over $10,000 from your house." The man called Mr. Lee nodded and downed his glass. "This group of people are like wolves that can never be fed. I used to feel sorry for her and gave her a lot of extra money." Someone said, "Feel sorry for them? Just treat them as gangsters. The kind of gangsters who will punish you after paying you enough protection money, and those black people will even take your life after robbing you. It's better to go out less recently." Jo Wei said, "Recently, I see shootings in the Union of South Africa every 2 weeks, and the security in Zambia is not good either. I don't know who would come here to travel. Who would come here if not to make money to support their family? I hope to get a little recommendation, humble." Chapter 91 5 Languages. The next morning, Yukai arrived at Lusaka Airport. This is the capital's airport and, naturally, the largest in Zambia. The most important thing about boarding here is that Yukai can choose a better airline, rather than being limited to African carriers like Ethiopian Airlines. Even Ethiopian Airlines first-class cabins lack the amenities of other airlines. Yukai booked business class on Singapore Airlines. Although Singapore Airlines has to transit in Singapore, their cabins are truly exceptional, renowned for their luxury. The A380's first-class cabin even has a private suite. The approximately 50 square meter suite features a luxurious double bed, leather seats, a 32-inch HD TV, and a bathroom large enough to do push-ups on the floor. There's even a dressing table for the ladies. The flight attendants seemed quite beautiful, too. Yukai suddenly realized, so that's how young he was back then. I must experience the Singapore Airlines luxury suite once I get the chance, Yukai thought to himself. The successful man standing behind Yukai reminded him, it's time to board the plane. Okay. After more than 10 hours of flight, Yukai finally landed at Chengdu Airport. Although the sun was shining in the sky, Yukai felt no warmth at all. He quickly pulled a jacket from his backpack and put it on. He'd thought his current body wouldn't be so susceptible to the cold. But he'd underestimated the temperature back home. While transiting in Singapore, Yukai had actually taken a look at Singapore Airlines first-class cabins. Those with large beds could easily cost tens of thousands of dollars, which translated to about 100,000 Chinese yuan per round. Yukai was astonished. With his current wealth, he really didn't deserve such a luxurious flight. From his trip to Zambia to his return to China today, he hadn't spent even 100,000 yuan. The transit wasn't without its benefits. He'd earned 330,000 Chinese yuan in some Malaysian language. This now meant Yukai could speak 5 languages: Chinese, Irish, German, Malaysian, and English. Tibetan wasn't very proficient, and since it's a Chinese dialect, it wasn't included in the statistics. Coming out of Terminal 2, the heaviness in Yukai's heart vanished as he heard the familiar accent of his hometown. He couldn't help but sigh. Hometown feels safer. Ding ding. A car pulled up beside Yukai, a familiar Civic. Yukai walked to the back of the car and called out, "Trunk." He put his suitcase and his travel bag in the trunk, feeling relieved, and finally got in. "Dad figured you'd arrive around this time, so he came to pick you up. Aren't you grateful?" "Go away." Sun Xiang laughed, shaking his head. Before college, the roommates in novels were all so close-knit: the eldest brother, the second brother, the third brother, and the fourth brother, their bond comparable to the Peach Garden sworn brothers. In reality, with 4 people in a dormitory, you have 3 sons, and 3 more who want to be your father. Even your grandfather. "Where's Sihu?" Yukai asked. Sun Xiang, unusually serious, said, "We're in school. We're college students, after all. We have to go to school, right?" "Yukai, I remember you can write songs. Sihu studies vocal music, how about you write one for her? Are you really settling down?" "Of course. Hi." Sun Xiang continued as he drove. "Our families actually know each other, and her family's well off. If she weren't still studying, we would have had the wedding. As long as you like it." Sun Xiang grew up in a single-parent family. On his 13th birthday, he discovered his parents were divorced, and he never believed in love again. He pursued many girls, but they were all after their bodies. So, since he had met his true love, Yukai felt that family background didn't matter. Sun Xiang's family wasn't short of money, and after they got married, they wouldn't be short of money either. "When do you want the song?" Yukai asked. Upon hearing Yukai's agreement, Sun Xiang happily patted the steering wheel and said, "Just say yes. Anytime is fine." She hasn't even graduated yet. Writing songs was actually a relatively simple task for Yukai, but he hadn't quite figured out what he'd been wanting to write. If he could finally write one, it would probably be in Sihu's style. "You just arrived in Chengdu, how about I get some friends over to welcome you home tonight?" Sun Xiang asked. "Forget it." Sun Xiang loved making friends and often spent his evenings singing, dining, and drinking. Yukai didn't like that kind of environment, and besides, he didn't know most of them, so there wasn't much to talk about. Sharing his travel experiences with a bunch of rich second generations? He'd probably be treated like a fool. The two of them had a meal of mediocre at a restaurant they often visited, a reunion, and then Sun Xiang drove Yukai back to his house in the new district. After getting out of the car, Yukai spotted his landlord's daughter at the gate of the complex. He remembered the little girl's name as Zhang Yunyu, a skinny 6-year-old. "Little Yunyu, why aren't you coming in?" "Brother," she called timidly. "My mom said she'd take me out to play, but she forgot to bring something, so she told me to wait here." "Brother, you go in." She made way for Yukai. The entrance to the complex was actually quite large. She was so adorable. Yukai wanted to touch the little girl's hair, but he was afraid it would scare her and be a bit rude, so he sighed and walked into the complex. It wasn't until he got home that he remembered about the apartment. Although there was still some time before the deadline, Yukai was often out and about, and there was no telling when he'd be back. He should have gone to the landlord's house to explain things. "Forget it, I'll talk to him next time." Yukai dropped his things in the living room and sat on the sofa, playing with his phone. He wanted to let Saoirse know he was safe. Christmas was the day after tomorrow, and Yukai really wanted to go to Ireland to spend it with Saoirse, but she flatly refused. She was busy studying all day. Irish universities have a 21-day Christmas holiday, and she needed to seize this time to study hard, otherwise she wouldn't be able to join the transfer class. If you can't be accepted as a transfer student, you'll have to wait another half year to enroll. Being a freshman means not just wasting half a year, but a whole year. So during this time, Saoirse was studying frantically, her intensity comparable to that of a high school senior in China in the last month before the college entrance exam. It's rare to see Europeans studying so hard. During the video call, Yukai saw his girlfriend's exhausted look and transferred her 100,000 yuan, instructing her, use this money to eat something good, and use the rest to find a tutor. Are you a monster? I thought you'd comfort me. Of course I wanted to comfort you, Yukai said, holding up the phone. But you have to walk the path you have to walk, even with all the tears. I'm just worried you won't pass the exam. A sneer came from the other end of the video. Don't underestimate me. I will definitely get into college. The video was disconnected. You received a transfer, with a message, rely on yourself. I almost forgot to update. I'm continuing to promote back to 2008. This is the last book. Please recommend. Chapter 92 Spokesperson. Yukai sat on the bus heading home, flipping through a book titled To Live. A faint bookish aura emanated from Yukai, and many on the bus noticed this handsome young man. It's truly rare in this society for people to settle down and read. The old man sitting next to Yukai had tried several times to strike up a conversation, but he was unwilling to interrupt his reading. However, many who were dissatisfied secretly cursed him. What a pretentious guy. Yukai didn't want this to happen, but who could blame him for having acquired a skill called enhanced comprehension of books? When he read printed books, a scholarly quality emerged. He could more easily understand the original author's thoughts and achieve a strange experience of empathy with the protagonist. Sigh. Yukai closed the book. Why did I buy this book in the first place? Was it simply because the author won an award for it? Or was it because the movie wasn't heartbreaking enough and I wanted to experience the pain again? Sigh. He sighed again, a sense of depression building in his chest that he couldn't express. Thinking about it from another perspective, it's truly remarkable that the author could write such a book. The old man sitting next to him was very optimistic about Yukai and said, "Why do you keep sighing, young man? You're so sentimental at such a young age. It's really not good." "Uncle, you're right," Yukai said. The old man continued, "Actually, I'm not even 60. You're calling me old, young man. My last name is Sun, so you can call me Uncle Sun." Yukai was puzzled, but then he realized that the old man was probably tired of sitting and wanted to chat, so he relaxed and called out, "Uncle Sun." "Yes," the old man agreed immediately. "I see you've been reading since we got on the bus. Are you a good student?" Yukai said modestly, "Just average." "Hey, don't be so modest," the old man waved his hand. "My daughter loves reading too. She's always been a good student. She's already got a doctorate and will be staying on campus as a university professor next year." "You're so lucky," Yukai praised. "If an elderly person wants to brag, just go along with them. It's not a big deal, and there's nothing else to do on this train." Yukai definitely won't be opening this book again. The train had already reached Xiancheng and was about to reach its stop. Yukai was in a pretty good mood. What a blessing. Ah, the old man sighed. "You're already in your 30s, and still haven't found a boyfriend. Isn't that worrying your parents, right?" Yukai's heart tightened. "Sun, what's that?" His daughter's name must be Sun Dashin. "Hey, young man, if you go home, won't your parents be worried about this?" "Here it comes." Yukai seemed to feel sorry for the old man and said, "Now that I think about it, your daughter is a bit too much. But my parents won't push me. My girlfriend and I just went on a trip abroad this year." The train arrived at its stop. Yukai handed the book to the old man and stood up. "This book is for my sister. I hope she finds a husband soon." He immediately ran to the door and waited for the driver to open it. The old man, holding a book, pointed at Yukai, stunned. "We've arrived," the driver called out, waking up many dozing passengers and opening the car door. Yukai was the first to get out. Yukai took a deep breath of the gasoline-scented air. This was the smell of home. He hailed a car, closed the door, and praised his own quick thinking. "Where to?" the driver asked. Wanda. To being community. He had almost forgotten he'd moved. Being community, building 4, room 811. Lee Mei hummed a tune as she cooked. Now that Yi Zhuqiang had a new job, he couldn't cook at home every day, but she believed a man should be busy outside. She'd met a few card-playing buddies in the community. Their husbands were either managers or department heads. If her husband wasn't a general manager, she'd be embarrassed to go play cards there. Today was mainly because her son was home, otherwise, she wouldn't have prepared such a sumptuous meal. Ding dong. The doorbell rang once, then beeped. Ye Kai entered by fingerprint. Upon entering, Yi Zhuqiang was sitting on the sofa watching TV, his hair combed back, glossy black and meticulously done, still sporting a touch of the rural entrepreneur's demeanor. Lee Mei came out with a spatula, and seeing Ye Kai, the spatula was trembling with joy. Why do I feel like my son has become more handsome again? Have you lost weight? Ye Kai took off his hat and said helplessly, Mom. I haven't lost weight, I'm fine. Hurry up and cook, I'm hungry. Okay. I'll go cook. This is home. On a coffee table in the living room were Ye Kai's favorite green dates, large and fresh, with water droplets still dripping from them, obviously freshly washed. Taking a bite, Ye Kai asked, Dad, how's King Liu going? Talking about work, Yi Zhuqiang's stern expression faded, and he said worriedly, we've produced a lot, and we're planning to market it through your uncle's channels. But as you said, can we do it without a spokesperson? I didn't say I didn't want one, but there's no need to print it on the label, it looks so ugly. After finishing a few bites of the green dates, Ye Kai tossed the pits into the trash and said, after the Chinese New Year, I'll find you a spokesperson and film a commercial. Ye Kai wasn't planning on looking for a celebrity in China. He had no impression of the celebrities who had debuted in recent years. Honestly, how many office workers still chased after their graduates? The occasional employee with a relatively relaxed job wasn't King Liu's target audience. There were already plenty of delicious energy drinks available. King Liu's only advantage over them was its ability to refresh and restore energy. It was a mental and physical backup. A product like this is naturally intended for those office workers who work late into the night, athletes who train intensely, game geeks who play games all night, and online writers. As long as the advertisement showcases a few of King Liu's characteristics, it's already halfway to success. After the Chinese New Year, let's go to Australia to learn surfing. Ye Kai has wanted to learn this sport for a long time, and he also wants Dinan to help shoot the King Liu commercial. Dinan's surfing performance in Saipan was so handsome. This kind of cool, confident, and free sport is the true spokesperson of King Liu. Ye Kai suddenly said, Mom. Lee Mei opened the kitchen door and asked, what's up? Although his father was sitting next to him, Ye Kai subconsciously called Lee Mei whenever he had a question. Is Chinese New Year on the 24th this year? Yet, it's almost a month away. You're not going out, are you? I guess you'll be gone for the better part of a month. Lee Mei's face immediately darkened, and she scolded Ye Kai. Chapter 93 Boxing. Chun Du also produced many martial arts masters in ancient times. Its Ame and King Chang martial arts are integral parts of martial arts novels. Perhaps for this reason, Chun Du has many places to learn traditional martial arts. Today, Ye Kai is visiting a former friend of his grandfather's. Don't get me wrong, he's not going there to learn martial arts. Take bus 213 to the Wenchang section of Wuhao Avenue, then walk through the intersection on Tianmao West Street. Directly across from the gates of experimental primary school is an art school called Waxing Wosu. It offers courses in dance and painting, as well as martial arts and music. There's a Chinese saying that education starts in childhood, and this hobby school, established right outside the primary school, has been thriving for years, attracting a steady stream of students. Today, Monday, the main students at the hobby school are in class at the primary school across the street, so many classrooms are empty, with the exception of the painting class. Over 30 middle school students are quietly sketching in the classroom, while the teacher sits in a chair in the back, playing with his phone. Ye Kai reaches the third floor and knocks on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Ye Kai pushed the door open and politely called out, Grandpa Chen. The old man at the desk looked at Ye Kai carefully and asked, who are you? I'm Ye Kai, Li Honghu's grandson. Oh, he said, suddenly realizing something. He stood up and said, Zio Kai, it's been ages since I last saw you. 10 years, right? You've grown so handsome now. Chen Hong was a good friend of my grandfather's. He was quite young, not even 60, but according to seniority, Yukai had to call him Grandpa. This school had originally been a martial arts gym, but Chen Hong's management skills were far greater than my grandfather's. After the millennium, he adapted it into a comprehensive interest-based program, modeled after the Children's Palace. He'd continued to run it and had a good reputation in Chengdu. It's been 16 years. I'm sorry I haven't come to visit you. I heard you love tea. Try this. Yukai handed over a can of green tea. Chen Hong examined the can. It was Meojin and Quesh, locally produced in Sichuan province. It wasn't expensive, which meant it wasn't a big deal, and he was a younger friend. He took the tea with a smile and jokingly said, "You haven't come to see me in all these years, and you're giving me a gift right away? Tell me, boy, what's the matter?" After walking so many miles, Yukai's face had thickened a little, and he didn't blush. He smiled and said, "I never had a time before. I was always studying, and I never thought about signing up for a hobby. Now that you have more time, don't you come to me?" "Oh? Want to develop a hobby? That's a good thing. I'll tell you what you want to learn." Chen Hong pushed the tea towards Yukai and said, "Take the things back too. If your grandfather knew I accepted your things, he might come to me tonight." "Would that be a slap in the face?" "You misunderstood," Yukai said. "I heard your master is a boxing coach, so I wanted to ask for an introduction. I'd like to study there for a while." Yukai suddenly remembered that Chen Hong's master was a boxing coach and had his own boxing gym, so he looked it up online. He found that the gym had produced 2 world champions in the past 10 years. So he immediately went to the supermarket to buy some tea and rushed over. He wanted to learn some defensive techniques, and boxing was his first choice. It wasn't that he looked down on traditional martial arts. He knew that martial arts were incredibly effective for strengthening the body and could deliver a powerful punch, but traditional martial arts weren't something you could claim to have mastered after just a year or two of practice. One must at least practice from a young age, refining all the moves until they became reflexes, understanding the function of each move through years of training with fellow practitioners. Consequently, many modern practitioners of traditional martial arts, when in a real fight, start with an imposing manner, but when they come together, it becomes a street brawl. In modern society, beginners who want to quickly acquire self-defense skills still rely on free fighting and kickboxing. That's not to say that martial arts are useless. Grappling techniques are incredibly effective for subduing a single opponent and are now the secrets of every martial art. Boxing. Chen Hong frowned. "Although we don't have any here, there are probably some gyms with boxing coaches, right? My master is in Zhengzhou, quite a distance away. Please do me a favor, Grandpa Chen." Most of the coaches at the gym were just showboats. 2 months of unified training, a coaching certificate, and you can go to a small gym to be a boxing coach. But Chen Hong's master has trained 2 world champions. How can he be the same? He learns everything very quickly now, so Yukai is not afraid of hard training, but he is afraid of practicing incorrectly. A habit formed in a few days will probably take months to change. Why not find a good coach from the beginning? Chen Hong nodded and said, "Okay, don't talk about referrals. What kind of society is this? I'll give you an address and phone number. When you get to Zhengzhou, just call this number." He took out a business card from the drawer and handed it to Yukai. "I'll call and let me know later." Master Chen Huang's boxing gym is not a secret one. Anyone who likes boxing is welcome to sign up. He just went to Zhengzhou specifically to learn boxing. Chen Hong couldn't understand this operation. Did Yukai want to have a professional boxing match? This was incredible. Seeing Yukai about to leave, Chen Hong suddenly called out, "Ziokai." "Huh? Grandpa Chen, is there anything else? Are you going to a boxing match?" "No," Yukai said bewilderedly. "I just want to practice self-defense. I won't go to a boxing match." "Don't worry, Grandpa Chen." "That's good." Chen Hong breathed a sigh of relief. He and Li Zhong who had a very good relationship in the past, and he couldn't bear to see Yukai walk into a fire pit. "Then I'll leave." Yukai left the office and closed the door gently. The master of 2 world boxing champions. What can he teach himself in half a month? Yukai was very excited. In flight. Henan province is full of fighting talents and has produced many fighting champions, not only boxing champions, but also world Muay Thai champions and world wrestling champions. When Yukai left the airport, He didn't go directly to the boxing gym. On the plane, Yukai suddenly remembered that his golden finger was more than just talent. China is his homeland, and there are so many skills to acquire. Is it possible that climbing Songshan Mountain and visiting Shaolin Temple will lead to the acquisition of boxing skills? Not necessarily. Visiting Mount Emei can give you calligraphy and Chinese painting, but who knows what a visit to Shaolin Temple might bring? Perhaps, like Yulu Academy and the Jokhang Temple, by exerting a little talent, you might win a prize and achieve your goal. So, as soon as Yukai got off the plane, he boarded a bus directly to Songgang. First, he'd go to the scenic area to try his luck. Chapter 94 Songgang. This bus would go all the way to Songgang, not directly to the scenic area. But the difference wasn't huge. It was 2 in the afternoon when Yukai boarded the bus, and he estimated it wouldn't arrive until 5 or 6. So, he was destined to spend the night in Songgang. As expected, it was already 6 when he got off. Since he couldn't go to the Songshan scenic area right now, the most important thing left was to try the local cuisine of Songgang. China is divided into north and south by the Qinling Mountains and the Wire River, each with its own distinct culinary culture. While modern cuisine has become more uniform, with a wide variety of local delicacies available everywhere, culinary traditions passed down through the centuries aren't something that can be completely altered. Whole grains and wheat still dominate the tables of many northerners. They have a variety of noodle-making techniques, and Yukai had tasted no more than 2 or 3 out of 10, with some even hidden in smaller towns, waiting to be discovered. Walking down the street, the crowds gradually increased. Yukai must have arrived at a well-known local street. Occasionally, he'd see foreigners walking along with cameras, likely tourists visiting Shaolin Temple. The name Shaolin Temple is becoming increasingly famous abroad, along with the word Kung Fu. Yukai paused, smelling the aroma emanating from a nearby shop. This street is full of food stalls, and Yukai was about to wander to the end and then turn back to find a place to eat, but the aroma emanated from a sesame seed bun shop. As everyone knows, snacks can be eaten with your hands, so Yukai prepared to buy one. So many people, Yukai thought, looking at the line. When you're in a new place and don't know what to eat, the easiest way is to see where the most people are eating. If there's a line, that's perfect. It means you're guaranteed to enjoy something delicious. However, I've heard that some places are now hiring actors to simulate the line, so if you use this method, you should be careful. Otherwise, you might end up with something unpalatable and have the impression that the food here is just so-so. The shop is small, only about 20 square meters, tucked away on a corner, with a strange name, Monday Baked Buns with Braised Pork. Why is it called Monday Baked Buns? When Yukai arrived, the clerk asked, "What do you want?" "The best-selling item," the clerk said with a laugh. "Okay." He filled the sesame seed bun, added some gluten and chili sauce to the center, and handed it to Yukai, saying, "Here, this is our best-selling item, sesame seed bun with tofu skewers." Besides the tofu skewers, Yukai also saw ham sausage, kelp shreds. How much? 5 yuan. Price-wise, African food is still cheaper. But in terms of texture and flavor, many Chinese snacks could easily crush African ones. Stepping out of the crowd, Yukai took the sesame seed bun and sniffed it. It had a strong aroma of burnt sesame seeds, with a hint of spiciness from the chili peppers. He pressed the bun lightly, adjusting it to the perfect thickness, and then bit into it. A neat semicircular notch appeared in the round bun. Layers of flavor exploded in his mouth. So fragrant. The bun was crispy on the outside, yet incredibly soft on the inside. Both sides were covered in roasted sesame seeds, creating a crispy, fragrant, and incredibly delicious taste. The chili sauce was spicy but fragrant, considered moderately spicy to Yukai. A 5 yuan sesame seed bun actually made Yukai feel incredibly satisfied. Our country truly is a land of delicious food. This street might be Songgang's food street, with delicacies from all over the world scattered along the way. Sangumeoke, Lanzhou beef noodles, hot dry noodles, sushi restaurants. Ahead of Yukai walked a woman holding a child. The child faced Yukai, his eyes fixed on the sesame seed bun in his hand, his mouth watering. He deliberately took a large bite and quickly slipped away before the child could cry. Yukai was actually full after finishing the sesame seed bun, but he still wanted something else. He figured, since he was already on the street, he couldn't just eat one thing. That would be a waste. So Yukai set his sights on a snack he had never seen before. It was a mobile stall, a food cart, with red lettering on the window, egg-filled pancake, fennel pancake. The chefs were a couple, but it was clear the man was the real chef. After kneading and rolling the dough into a rectangular sheet, he placed it on a griddle. After a while, the chef used tongs to slit the sheet and pour the prepared egg mixture into it. So this is an egg-filled pancake. It's true that seeing it in person is worse than hearing about it. Aside from the egg filling, the process is identical to a giant bing, a Chinese pancake. Yukai bought a few yuan to try it out. Like the xiaobing, sesame pancake, it was a generous portion. The noodles finally filled his stomach. On the way, Yukai saw a stall selling spicy soup. He frowned, turning away from the other shops, forcing himself to resist the urge to go in and enjoy a bowl of it. With so many restaurants he wanted to try, he couldn't possibly eat them all, so he decided to find a hotel first. In this city, he chose not to stay in a star-rated hotel, but a regular chain. The hotel was close to the snack street, so if he got hungry later, he could go there for a late-night snack. Nothing happened all night. He actually wanted to eat something in the middle of the night, but he was too lazy to order takeout, let alone get out of bed. So he continued sleeping with his eyes closed until his alarm woke him. Is it 7 o'clock so soon? Yukai turned off his phone alarm, sat up in bed, and took the pillow next to him and placed it behind his back. Time to get up, he thought. He felt himself get dressed and was about to go to the bathroom to rinse out his mouth when the alarm rang again. He suddenly opened his eyes and, with great willpower, threw back the covers and got out of bed. Whether air-conditioned or not, getting up early in the winter is truly difficult. There were many attractions to visit today. Besides the most famous Shaolin Temple, there was also Songshan Academy and Honggayu Temple, the largest Taoist temple among the 5 sacred mountains. This is a sacred site for the Kwanzhan sect of Taoism and a renowned palace for the entire Taoist religion. With the increasing commercialization of Shaolin Temple, many people online have been saying that while a trip to Songshan might skip Shaolin Temple, a visit to Honggayu Temple is a must. Yukai wanted to see the scenery, and secondly, to try his luck at winning a prize. If he had more time, he would also like to visit the observatory. I heard that the rain-making competition between Sun Wukong and Huli Daxin in Journey to the West was filmed at this observatory. P.S. I'm not praying for rain when I pick tea, I'm just asking for some votes. Chapter 95 Spicy Soup. The first thing I did when I went downstairs today was to run to the Hula Tang restaurant I saw yesterday. As soon as I approached here early in the morning, I could immediately smell the aroma of Hula Tang all over the street, and my already hungry stomach started to growl. The area of this restaurant is about 200 to 300 square meters. The environment is very clean and bright. The work clothes of the kitchen helpers and chefs in the window are also very white, which makes people feel more at ease. There are still quite a few people here. After Yukai walked in and took a quick look, there were not many empty seats. What do you want to eat? Asked the cashier. Above the bar, the restaurant's dishes are posted. The signature dish is of course Hula Tang. Below it are various traditional noodle breakfasts, fried dough sticks, porridge and buns. Yukai asked, high-quality spicy Hula Tang means more ingredients, right? Yes, with better ingredients and more toppings. Want one? Yes, Yukai said, ordering each one. Give me 2 fried dough sticks. What's that beef box? I'll take 1 too. And 6 pan-fried buns, please. Judging by the pictures on the menu, they looked like pan-fried buns. They were incredibly cheap, 3 for 1 yuan, and 6 for only 2 yuan. Yukai had never tasted such cheap fried buns before. He found a seat and waited expectantly. Soon, someone arrived with plates, steaming hot spicy Hula Tang and fried dough sticks cut into small pieces. The beef box, a fried dough stick filled with meat filling, was also cut into 4 pieces. The filling contained beef and, seemingly, vermicelli noodles, which steamed white along with the spicy tang. Not bad, not bad. Yukai was satisfied. He took a bite of the beef box. The rich meaty aroma and crispy exterior complemented the soft filling beautifully. The meat filling was juicy, its juices soaking into the crispy crust, neutralizing the greasiness of the deep-fried outer layer. In the snowy regions, there's a dish called beef patties, a common side in Tibetan restaurants. There are also fried patties with beef, but there's very little, only a thin layer, and the beef isn't particularly tasty. This filling tastes more like a French chef's beef stew in red wine. With a gentle press, the sauce drizzles down the edges. Chewing on the beef patty, Yukai scooped up a spoonful of spicy tang. It resembled curry, and Yukai could sense a slight viscosity as he stirred it. It was also curry-colored, which made him worry it would taste like curry. But it didn't. Only after tasting it did he understand why it was called spicy tang. Hu refers to the flavor of pepper, and la refers to the flavor of chili pepper. It was both numbing and spicy, spiciness radiating from the throat to the stomach, followed by a surge of energy that instantly swept away any trace of fatigue. Now, Yukai felt like he could run all the way to Shaoshi Mountain. Of course, while the spirit was there, it hadn't evolved into actual practice. High-quality spicy hula tang, hot and spicy soup, contains wood ear mushrooms, tofu skin, meat, mushrooms, and gluten. The beef and tofu skin are particularly fragrant. Yukai imitated others and dipped the fried cakes into the hula tang, eating them together. The fried buns were filled with beef, exactly the same as the beef box filling. After a few sips of spicy hula tang, even Yukai, who loves spicy food, had to stop and have a beef box or fried buns. As he left the restaurant, Yukai savored the flavors. It's so refreshing. The people of Hunan were so lucky. With a bowl of spicy hula tang like this in winter, what fear did the cold have? Yukai suggested that those energetic young women should also enjoy a bowl of hula tang every day, and then exclaim with renewed energy, "Today is also a day full of energy." After asking passers-by, Yukai headed to the bus station in Songgang and boarded a bus bound for the Songshan scenic area. The ticket cost 5 yuan, and the ride took about half an hour. After boarding the bus, Yukai put on his headphones and listened to music. Time didn't seem to slow down, and as he gazed at the scenery outside, dozens of minutes flew by in a flash. They had arrived at the renowned Shaolin Temple. After getting off the bus and walking a little further, they came into view of the scenic area's main gate. A large stone inscribed with Songshan National Key Scenic Area stood behind it, a bronze statue of a martial arts monk. Or perhaps it was made of iron, but it was strikingly handsome, reminiscent of the handsome monks in online games. Martial arts schools lined the roadside, and the occasional shouting brought back Yukai's childhood martial arts training, when he could do a split. He followed the sounds and saw thousands of young men and women in red and black school uniforms standing neatly on the vast playground, doing morning exercises. Nearby, a foreigner was mumbling incomprehensibly in Russian, seemingly wanting to join in the martial arts training. Yukai grabbed his camera and snapped a few photos. These children had clearly been practicing for a long time. Following the instructions of their martial arts instructor, they methodically performed martial arts routines, thousands of them moving in unison, perfectly aligned. Even without obsessive-compulsive disorder, one would find neatly arranged things more appealing than scattered ones. The uniformity of movement is striking and creates a striking visual effect. The young men lifted their feet high, stomped them hard on the ground, and exclaimed "Ha!" in unison. Everyone watching from the sidelines was shocked. Why don't I just learn martial arts? The thought suddenly crossed Yukai's mind, but he quickly dismissed it. Wasn't he interested in boxing because its techniques were so simple and easy to master? At his age, if he tried traditional martial arts, he wouldn't be able to get past the ligament stretching stage. Logically, the older one gets, the less effective martial arts become, no matter how talented one is. This is reality, not a martial arts novel. One won't suddenly open up their Ren and Do meridians one day. Leaving the martial arts school, Yukai entered the Shaolin Temple complex. At the ticket booth, there was a grand, imposing mountain gate, with the characters Songshan Shaolin inscribed on the lintel. Yukai took the 80 yuan ticket and casually put it in his pocket. The ticket seller reminded him, "Handsome, there will be a second ticket shack inside the temple. Please keep it." "Oh," Yukai smiled at her and said, "Thank you. I see." Folding the ticket and putting it in his pocket, Yukai took a photo and walked slowly through the gate. Yukai walked quite fast, but he had encountered a tour group of about 20 people. Their guide was explaining the history of Shaolin Temple. Was it bad to eavesdrop? Yukai glanced around and saw a stall selling water and snacks. He had an idea. He ran over to buy some and then continued to eavesdrop on the tour. When the guide finished his speech and was about to take a break, Yukai tightened his hat and approached, saying, "You've explained a lot of details. Have a drink of water." The guide was startled. Then he pulled a thermos from his waist and said, "Sorry, I need some hot water. It's been a while since I've received any tips, but I've received so many these past 2 days. Thank you to Love Han Fei, Miss Sister," You've worked hard, little hands and knife hands. Yankee is the sky, Bashan night rain little Gudeo ren, Wujia by one, love to replace water squid, trouble +1, Lian dong. There are so many tips, I won't thank them all individually, haha. Before the release, I'll be writing 2 chapters a day. Please vote, and I'll try to get it up in mid-March. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, Crossing the River on a Reed. Yukai stood there, a bit embarrassed. The tour guide unscrewed the thermos and took a sip of the hot water. He wanted to thank Yukai, but suddenly hesitated and asked, "Who are you?" "I'm just a tourist." Seeing his plan failed, Yukai simply said bluntly, "I just heard your explanation and thought I'd get to know you." "Are you Yukai?" "Huh? You know me? Are you a fan or a hater?" He had originally been thinking about getting a free ride on the explanation, but he never expected that someone he casually approached in Shaolin Temple would actually know him. Yukai glanced around, realizing no one else noticed him. Then he said to the tour guide, "It's me. I didn't expect you to recognize me." "Really you?" The tour guide was incredulous. After a moment's thought, he pulled his notebook from his bag and beamed, "I love Nirvana in Fire. Could you please sign my name?" Yukai took the pen and smiled, "Of course." After signing his name with flourish, Yukai returned the pen to the tour guide and asked, "I'm not very familiar with Shaolin Temple by myself. I heard it's a long way to get to the scenic spot." "Yes," the tour guide said. She pointed to a road and said, "At our walking speed, it should take about 20 minutes, right? Can I hear your explanation?" Of course. After all, this was also a topic of conversation. When I got home from get off work that evening, I could brag about it to my friends on WeChat. Even celebrities liked hearing my explanations. After a few minutes rest, the tour guide, holding a small yellow flag, began to organize the group. This was a small tour group of 20, the average age estimated to be around 60. Some carried backpacks, others lugged suitcases. They were likely the kind of group in a hurry, eager to move on from one attraction to the next. After completing her inventory, the female tour guide nodded to Yukai and walked forward, saying, "Teachers, please look back at the mountain gate. Below our Shaolin Temple in Songshan, there's a couplet, on a reed, I crossed the Yangtze River, cultivating for 9 years, 2 mountains contain ancient temples, offering homage to the 10 directions. What does this refer to? It's about Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen Buddhism, who arrived from India and landed in Guangdong, and southern Fujian. However, because Bodhidharma was unattractive, his speech was jarring, and he wasn't good-spoken, he wasn't well-spoken. Therefore, despite his profound Buddhist teachings, he wasn't taken seriously in his local community." Yukai nodded repeatedly. This was the importance of appearance in socializing, even Bodhidharma wasn't immune. The group continued along the path, listening to the guide's stories. "Our founder was deeply wounded, so he crossed the Yangtze River. He crossed on a reed, known as a one-reed crossing, and arrived at the foot of our Mount Song. Upon his arrival, our then Shaolin Temple refused to receive him. Helplessly, he climbed a peak above Mount Song called Five Breasts Peak, where he found a cave. Of course, we now call it Bodhidharma Cave. He spent 9 years facing the wall in the cave, and one day, he suddenly realized the truth and attained Buddhahood. After about 5 minutes of walking, a group of children descended a long staircase on the left. The tour guide said, "Now, these children are going to class. They are students of the famous Tago Martial Arts School. Currently, the Tago Martial Arts School has 35,000 students and teachers. The children, dressed in red shirts and black pants, were perfectly attired." Yukai thought the uniforms of the children outside looked better. 35,000 people. So many people in China still study traditional martial arts? How much does it cost to attend school here? Yukai asked. The tour guide said, "It seems to be 3,000 or 4,000 per semester, which isn't expensive." An elderly woman remarked, "Isn't admission free now? My grandson is in junior high, and he only pays for textbooks, which cost 100 or 200 each time." "That's different," an elderly man explained warmly. "When these kids grow up, they'll be martial arts stars, bringing glory to our country." Whether it's expensive or not depends largely on how one interprets it. Some better private schools won't offer free tuition. 3 or 4,000 yuan is normal for a boarding school. Even though this is a martial arts school, it should be around the same. Studying here strengthens the body, and that's an immediate effect. It's a martial arts school, after all. Yukai watched them march in neat rows, calling out 1, 2, 3, 4. It was clearly a semi-military style of management. He'd checked out other boarding schools before, and the students were all quite good. Students who graduate from boarding schools develop strong self-discipline. Yukai's grandfather once said that martial arts training builds confidence. So, 3 or 4,000 yuan per semester for a boarding school isn't really that expensive. After walking for about 20 minutes, I finally saw, nestled in a pine forest, the Shaolin Temple I'd imagined since childhood on television, in movies, and in novels. What we usually refer to as Shaolin Temple actually refers to the Shaolin Temple's permanent residence, where monks worship, meditate, chant, receive guests, store books, and hold large-scale religious ceremonies. In the square in front of the permanent residence, nestled amidst the pine and cypress forest, 2 stone archways, each with a single door, stand facing east and west. Built during the Jiajing period of the Ming Dynasty, their roofs feature the highest grade of hip roof in ancient Chinese architecture. However, this area has become a tourist hub, serving as a small plaza before the scenic spot. Many visitors, after exploring the Shaolin Temple on their own, come here to take photos, buy snacks, and so on. You guys go in, and don't worry about me, Yukai said to the tour guide. Okay, then, we'll be leaving. You should keep working hard and write better works. The tour guide spoke softly, fearing that the locals would know Yukai's identity. But in reality, Yukai was far from being that famous. Yukai deliberately kept a low profile, and aside from the occasional live stream, he hadn't released any other works. As a result, many of his former fans can't even remember what he actually looked like. Ugly people all have their own unique characteristics, but handsome people are just handsome. Standing in this square, looking at the 3 large characters Shaolin Temple above the permanent residence, Yukai felt as if he had stepped into a movie about Shaolin Temple. However, the bustling crowd of tourists around him somewhat ruined the atmosphere. Yukai frowned, then smiled. He, too, was ruining the atmosphere. After waiting for a few minutes, until the tourists at the entrance had dispersed, Yukai pressed the shutter, capturing this photo of the Shaolin Temple gate. From the same angle, this gate had been photographed countless times. But this one was different, it was his own. He saved it and headed inside the temple. Inside the gate stood a red donation box with the inscription, "Planting the Fields of Blessing, Immeasurable Merit." Chapter 97 Burning Incense. Atop the donation box sat an incense burner and a Buddha statue. This statue is quite well known, and even Yukai, who didn't pay much attention to Buddhism, could recognize it instantly. It was Maitreya Buddha. Beside the statue are 2 rows of couplets. A broad belly can accommodate even the most inconsolable things in heaven. A smile is always on one's face, laughing at the ridiculous people of the world. As I walked around the statue and entered Shaolin Temple from the left, someone called out, "Handsome man, let us see your ticket." "Oh, sure." Yukai pulled his ticket from his pocket. Sure enough, it required a second ticket check. Upon entering Shaolin, the most striking thing was a towering tree on the left. Yukai read the introduction and learned that the tree was 1,500 years old. Many people took photos beneath it. Looking closer, one could see the dense, finger-sized holes on the ginkgo tree, left by former martial monks practicing the Shaolin martial art one-finger Zen. A fence had been erected around the tree, keeping visitors 1 meter away. Numerous ancient trees lined the corridor, beneath which nestled over 20 stone tablets from various dynasties, such as the monument to Zhuangdaojin's return to the mountain and the monument to Zen master Zixi. Not all monks at Shaolin Temple are Chinese. Yukai even spotted some foreign monks along the way. Continuing further in, he arrived at the Heavenly King Hall. Above the main hall, a plaque reads "The First Ancestral Temple Under Heaven," inscribed by Emperor Qianlong of the Qing Dynasty. Flanking each side are 2 door gods. The blue one on the right represents Heng, the red one on the left represents Ha. Enshrined within the hall are the 4 heavenly kings, representing favorable winds and rains, hence its name. Further inside is the main hall. Outside, a massive incense shrine blazes with incense, its scent permeating the air. Should I light a stick of incense? Yukai wondered, gazing at the incense burner. Although he doesn't believe in Buddhism, 2020 is coming soon, so he might as well burn a stick of incense here and wish for good weather and good harvests next year. There is a table at the entrance of the main hall where incense is sold, and 3 monks in robes are sitting next to it. Since there are many people queuing, Yukai wanted to take some photos. The incense on this table is very long. The thinnest stick is as thick as 2 fingers, and the thickest stick is thicker than the mouth of a bowl, about 1 meter and 2 meters long. Just looking at the incense, Yukai felt that it would not be cheap. It should cost 200 or 300 yuan, right? The monk said to the tourist, "Donor, please write your name on the list first." Yukai has good hearing and eyesight. Although he is standing far away, he can still hear their conversation clearly. "Do you have to write your name when buying incense? Does it cost money to sign?" The man asked cautiously. "Don't worry, signing is free." After the petition was completed, a monk announced, "For any pilgrim who signs, Venerable Shi Yongxin will personally chant sutras and reciting the Buddha's name to dispel misfortunes." He then pointed to a group of incense sticks, varying in thickness and opulence, all gleaming with golden light, and asked, "Donor, which stick would you like?" Perhaps out of respect, the man chose a medium-sized stick. After the monk carefully handed the stick to him, he said, "This stick costs 2,000 yuan. 2,000 yuan? Yukai was stunned, and even more so the tourist who had ordered the incense. What kind of incense was this? It was so expensive. Forget it. Yukai quickly walked away. He couldn't afford 2,000 yuan for incense. Sometimes, on the Bodhisattva's birthday, Li Meili would take him to temples near Xianchang to burn incense and worship, and enjoy a vegetarian meal. Some temples even offered free incense. Although the incense was very fine, unlike the ones here, 2,000 yuan was still a loss. Yukai didn't believe it anyway, so he left. He saw the person who had been about to burn incense choose the smallest one instead. He wondered how much it cost. It was okay, the monks didn't force you to burn expensive ones. Why are all the tourist attractions so rip-offs? Whether it was Saipan, Kuantai Alley, or Shaolin Temple, prices were high. And during peak season, the crowds of tourists were unbearable. It would be better to find a place with mountains and water for a picnic and enjoy the scenery. Behind the main hall was the Sutra Library. There were no sweeping monks inside, but perhaps the monks who manned it were martial arts masters. The abbot's room, the Lixun Pavilion. Outside the pavilion, a group of foreigners surrounded a monk speaking a foreign language, listening to his explanation. Shaolin Temple actually has a volunteer tour group. If you're not on a tour group but still want a tour, you can join one of these groups. Since it's free, there's no need to worry about being seen as a freeloader. He finished touring the Shaolin Temple's attractions, but no system notifications were triggered. Is it because I didn't visit the pagoda forest? Yukai rushed off to visit the pagoda forest again. With his previous experience at the Potala Palace as a lesson, Yukai took his time and walked slowly, but even so, he didn't receive any rewards from the system. Standing at the edge of the pagoda forest, Yukai pondered. Are there other rules? The system he had obtained was different from those in many novels. There were no prompts or explanations, no quests. It only gave rewards after completing various conditions. Finally, there was a cable car ride up the mountain, which Yukai also participated in, but still no rewards. Let's go to Zhonggayu Temple first. Regardless, he decided to complete his visit to the attractions near Songshan before considering it. It felt like the experience of traveling to these attractions had lost its flavor. Zhonggayu Temple, formerly known as Taishi Temple, is located at the foot of Taishi Mountain, on the southern slope of Songshan. Admission is only 30 yuan. It's vast, and many of the buildings are older than those at Shaolin Temple. But in reality, this aging architecture gives a deeper sense of history. Despite the vicissitudes of life, it still stands tall in the sun and wind, a truly astonishing sight. In front of the largest hall, a Taoist priest was feeding pigeons. The pigeons, unfazed by people, simply hopped aside when they noticed Yukai approaching, not flying away. "Master, are these pigeons raised in the temple?" "I suppose," the priest asked. His Mandarin wasn't very good, with a Songyang accent. "Would you like to burn some incense?" he asked. Yukai then noticed a small room behind the priest, a place for incense, filled with incense. He smiled and said, "I don't dare burn any." Since there were few people here, Yukai enjoyed joking with him. Seeing Yukai's expression, the Taoist priest explained, Did you ask at the incense place outside? That one was built by a merchant. This one here, in our temple, costs 3 incense sticks for 10 yuan. Huh? So cheap? Yukai had indeed asked at the incense place outside, and there, 3 incense sticks cost 200 yuan. Really? Yukai was a little wary, fearing they might have some tricks up their sleeves, but after double-checking, he still spent 10 yuan to buy 3 incense sticks. Holding the lit incense in his hand, Yukai chanted, "I pray to all the gods for a prosperous year, a peaceful world, and a safe journey ahead. May all my future travels be safe and secure, and may I avoid danger and turn misfortune into good fortune." After lighting the incense, Yukai prepared to leave. This was the last attraction in Zhonggayu Temple. You visited Zhonggayu Temple and gained the skill health preservation. Man follows the earth follows the sky follows the Tao, and the Tao follows nature. You have visited the 3 local religions and now have a deeper understanding of Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. You gain the 6 arts of a gentleman, archery. You gain the 6 arts of a gentleman, charioteering, talent plus 10. P.S. My hands have been hurting these past few days. I just found out today that I have tendinitis. I'm updating this despite the pain. I just want to wish you all would give me more votes. Chapter 98 Boxing Champion. Did you gain any skills after visiting Zhonggayu Temple? Yukai fell into deep thought. He had once again obtained the 3 religions inheritance, and the reward instructions for this were different from most rewards. Or could I categorize them into 2 types? One type is the normal skills gained from visiting ordinary attractions, like the health-preserving skills he'd obtained at Zhonggayu Temple and the reading skills at Yulu Academy. The second type is gained after watching the sunrise at Mount Emei and after visiting the 3 religious buildings. Besides the 3 religions inheritance, they also gave 2 additional skills: calligraphy, Chinese painting, archery, and charioteering. If we consider all of this as a game, the first type is quests, and the second is achievements. In most games, the rewards for achievements are naturally higher than those for ordinary quests. This also explains why some locations don't offer a second reward. Yukai received a Buddhist reward at the Jiaqiang Temple, a Confucian reward at Yulu Academy, and a Taoist reward at Zhonggayu Temple. Perhaps it's no longer possible to obtain rewards from temples or academies. In other words, each type of attraction can only be entered once. He muttered to himself, perhaps that's it. On the way out of Zhonggayu Temple, Yukai pondered his newly acquired skills. Health-preserving skills are passive abilities that subtly alter the human body, making cells more active and slowing down aging. Simply put, these skills will allow Yukai to age more slowly, live longer, and maintain a healthier life. Archery, as its name suggests, is one of the ancient 6 arts of a gentleman. It increases Yukai's control over the strength of his arms, waist, and legs, and further enhances his vision. Chariot riding increases his reflexes at high speeds, which should be helpful for driving various vehicles, and automatically allows him to learn horseback riding. Although he didn't gain the boxing technique, the health-preserving skill was far more useful than boxing, so Yukai didn't complain and happily rode back to the hotel. Yukai had actually wanted to visit the observatory on the way, but then he thought, if he gained the skills there, what would he do with other similar attractions in the future? The observatory, or the Temple of Heaven in Yanjing. If he could only try the prize once, he would definitely save it for the Temple of Heaven. That was a given. After returning to Songgang, Yukai checked out of his room and went directly to Songgang Station to buy a ticket to Zhengzhou. He'd stay in Zhengzhou for another night and contact the gym tomorrow morning. Yukai didn't pack much this time, just a travel bag and a camera. Inside the bag were a set of clothes and a laptop. He also had some miscellaneous items like a selfie stick and various cables. With so little, he felt lighter on the road. Domestic travel doesn't require many essentials, and Yukai planned to buy new clothes here, ready to use whenever he wanted. Night passed quickly, and a new day began. Jingyu stood outside the complex, anxiously waiting. She wasn't particularly patient, and whenever she had to wait, she felt incredibly anxious, as if she was wasting time. She checked her phone. 5 minutes to 9, she muttered. She'd barely arrived at the gym when her master asked her to go downstairs to pick up someone named Yikai. She was curious about who this Yikai was. Could he be his apprentice? And the person Jingyu was anxiously waiting for was still in her Didi car. Yikai couldn't stop sighing. Hurry up, sir. I'm in a hurry. The driver took a sip of water and said leisurely, This can't go any faster. Is this your first time in Zhengzhou? You look so handsome. Are you a celebrity? Yes, sir. Come here and give me an autograph. Haha, you're so funny, young man. Morning rush hour is always the worst time for traffic, and Zhengzhou is no exception, but it's not as congested as first-tier cities. The Didi driver drove as steady as a rock and as slow as a koala. A journey that should have taken half an hour took twice as long as expected. He paid, got out, and gave a bad review. It's over, it's over. I'm late, Yukai muttered anxiously, looking back at his destination. It was a very ordinary residential area. You needed an access card to enter. Outside was a 3-lane highway, across from a park, and the nearest street was a 500 or 600 meter walk back. It was a large residential area. But it didn't look like there was a boxing gym. Yukai thought back to the phone call he had made that morning. Let me take a taxi to Bihei Road, Wenchi Ocean Community, Exit B. He saw the sign outside the security room and confirmed, yes, that's it. After walking back and forth for a minute, Yukai was about to make a phone call when a voice came from behind him. Hello. The caller was a woman with medium-length hair tied in 2 small buns, wearing a tracksuit zipped up to the neck. Yukai looked around and saw no one else was around, so he pointed at himself and asked, Are you calling me? Are you Yukai? Yukai said enthusiastically. It's me. You're from Bajin Boxing Gym, right? Hearing her call out his name, Yukai guessed that this person must be the one sent by Master Chen Zhonggayu to pick him up. The appointment was for 9 o'clock, and it was already more than 10 minutes past. For a humble student, this was a serious matter. A teacher with a bad temper might have told Yukai to get out. Besides, he was going to learn combat sports. Jingyu smiled sheepishly and said, It's okay. It won't take long. I'll take you up. Is the boxing gym inside the community? Yukai asked. Yes. Jingyu opened the door and beckoned Yukai to hurry in. The neighborhood was beautiful, with well-landscaped landscaping and wide roads, wide enough for 3 cars to pass side by side. Many people were strolling along the streets, too. Moms who had been idle at home gathered, pushing their babies inside. There's a small park inside, Jingyu explained, noticing Yukai's curiosity. I see. Seeing Yukai with a camera, Jingyu assumed he was a reporter and said, My name is Jingyu. Are you here to interview your master? Master? Senior Chen Zhonggayu is your master. Yukai was a little surprised. Anyone who could call Senior Chen Zhonggayu their master must have learned boxing from him. Jingyu was attracted to, wait? Jingyu? You're the female boxing champion, Jingyu. Yukai suddenly remembered. Wasn't that her the photo he'd seen when he was researching? But it showed her in the ring, competing. Her eyes were fierce, her arms bulging with muscle, her cheeks stained with blood. She looked more manly than many other young men. She was completely different from the gentle little girl Yukai saw now. Jingyu was amused by Yukai's appearance and said, Yes, that's me. Chapter 99 Champion Coach. What the hell is going on? Jingyu looked like a typical urban girl. While she might not have the physique of a runway model, she certainly didn't look like the tough guy in the movies who could kill a bull with one punch. He was confused. Jingyu laughed and said, What's wrong? Don't I look like her? Yukai shook his head. No, I think you're very beautiful. When I first met you, I was wondering if you were a teacher or a nurse. If you hadn't told me, I'd never have guessed. Haha, thank you for the compliment. She let out a silvery laugh, even her steps becoming more brisk. Is this the female boxing champion? So incongruous. The two of them walked into a building and took the elevator to the 6th floor. Actually, Yukai had been wondering, but he hadn't asked. Weren't they going to the boxing gym? Why here? Wasn't this a residential complex? Were they going to find a place to live first? That was quite thoughtful of Master Chen. The elevator door opened, and everything became clear. The boxing gym was right here. The entire corridor had no buildings built into it. Aside from the necessary load-bearing walls, there were no other barriers or decorations, and the floors and ceilings were concrete. However, the equipment was plentiful, with most fitness machines available. The most eye-catching were the 3 boxing rings, 1 in the center and 2 at the edges. At a glance, there were about 5 people, 2 working out, the other 3 punching sandbags. Aside from the dull thud of bang bang bang, there was no other sound. The sound of fists pounding against the sandbags was pure and unadulterated in this empty space. Pure male hormones. Seeing Jingyu, they called out, senior sister, and so on. Jingyu nodded, glanced around, and asked, where's the master? He's gone upstairs to get something. He'll be down soon. Huh? What do we do then? Jingyu asked. No problem. Can I try punching the sandbags? Of course. Upon hearing the reply, Yukai unloaded his travel bag and camera and placed them in the corner, then removed his jacket and tossed it on top of the travel bag. Beneath his jacket, he wore a tight, long, white t-shirt, which highlighted his muscular features. Huh? You have muscles? Jingyu exclaimed in surprise. Yukai, warming up with chest exercises, said, what's so strange about that? It's normal for men to develop muscles if they exercise regularly, right? No, Jingyu explained. I meant that I saw you so thin before, but I didn't expect you to have muscles. My bad, my bad. Someone on the treadmill nearby gasped. Maybe this is the saying, thin when dressed, muscular when undressed. I'm so envious. I'm so envious. I'm so envious. Everyone in the gym chimed in, even Jingyu. I'm so envious. The atmosphere was quite pleasant. Influenced by them, Yukai's mood brightened. Seeing Yukai about to hit the punching bag, Jingyu stopped him, pulled out a long piece of tape from a rack, and said, for your first boxing match, strap on your handcuffs. How do you strap them? It turned out they had to strap their handcuffs. Yukai had assumed boxing only involved gloves. After Yukai learned how to tie the wristbands from Jingyu, she said, you can do it yourself. I'm going to train. Okay. He was a world champion. The most important thing was to train more and win more matches, not to teach a rookie like him. Walking over to the sandbag, watching the three older guys fighting, Yukai began swinging his fists at it. Bang! Bang! Each punch landed right in the middle of the bag, causing it to shake violently, and the chains above it to clink with a series of clanging sounds. It was quite satisfying, you know. 1, 2. Yukai. Turning around, Yukai saw a gray-haired old man, about 1.7 meters tall, rather thin, looking like he was in his 60s or 70s, but his back was straight and he looked energetic. This was Chen Zhongyu, the champion coach who had trained 2 world-class boxers. Yukai nodded and said, well, Master Chen, hello. Hello, hello, you're much more handsome than your grandfather. He smiled and placed the sandbag on the bench press machine. Master Chen, do you know my grandfather? Yes, we went to the same school when we were young, but we weren't from the same village. I haven't seen him in years. How is he doing now? My grandfather passed away many years ago. Oh. While exercise can help people live longer, that's relative. After all, few people live a life without illness or disaster. It's okay. Yukai untied his handbag and wiped the sweat off his face. It happened over 10 years ago. I've gotten over it enough. I should probably move on. That's right, Chen Zhongyu said. But I have one more thing I want to ask Master Chen. Where was my grandfather from? He never told us. He died in a car accident, so he didn't leave any messages. I'll tell you about that another day. Come on, stop hitting the sandbag and hit this. He picked up the item he'd brought down and tossed it to an apprentice watching the show. Measure his strength. Then he turned to Yukai and said, measure his strength first. I'm going to go to the bathroom. It turned out to be a force measuring tool. It was a dark green sandbag, rectangular, about 50 centimeters across, resembling a dynamite pack from an anti-Japanese war film. When he picked it up, he saw a small display on top, with a few buttons around the edges. The man who held the weight bag was young, no more than 20 years old, rather thin, and not yet muscular. He smiled at Yukai and said, my name is Jose Cheo, a famous star. Could you tell me how much I weigh? Do you know me? I'm 72 kilograms. He lowered his head to adjust the weight bag, then said, I've seen it on TV. Angela is my idol. What's it like competing with her? What's your relationship with Zhangzi? Is she your girlfriend? He looked up, saw Yukai standing still, and said, go put on your boxing gloves. Do you want to wear them? Of course you do, otherwise how can the measurement be accurate? I have a new one, 12 ounces, perfect for you. I'll sell it to you for 300 yuan. Okay. Great. He laughed heartily and went to find gloves for Yukai. He looked like he'd made a killing. When they came back, Jingyu also followed. He handed the boxing gloves to Yukai and said, He bought the wrong thing. It has been left here gathering dust. It costs 220 yuan. After that, he scolded Zhou Zichao, I solved a problem for you, and you still want to make money from others. Yukai smiled and ignored Jing Yu's scolding of his junior brother. He was studying the boxing gloves. Although he had never used them before, the structure was simple. He understood how to wear the gloves after a few glances. Taking off his watch and bracelet and putting them aside, Yukai put on the boxing gloves. He clinked his fists and said with high spirits, Hitware. Chapter 100 All-Out Attack. Zhou Zichao seemed still brooding over the few dozen yuan. He casually picked up the dynamometer bag and said, hit the sandbag. Hard. Of course, it's a test of strength. Use all your might. Okay, then be careful. Yukai also wanted to know how much force he could exert. Although everything in his body had been enhanced many times over, the increase in strength was not significant. For an ordinary person, tripling their intelligence would be enough to make them a top scientist. But tripling their strength would still not match that of a great boxer. Clench your fists, hold your breath. Punch. Bang. Wait. Before he could finish his words, Zhou Zichao was already flying backwards. His center of gravity wasn't always forward, but in the middle. Only when Yukai's punch came did he frantically adjust his center of gravity. Trying to push against the sandbag by then, it was too late. Yukai felt like he was hitting a suspended object, feeling no resistance at all. Perhaps Yukai's strength wasn't top-notch, but he was fast. Why can a boxer deliver a punch of hundreds of kilograms? It's because the speed of the punch is superimposed on the strength of the muscles themselves during the punching motion. Boxing is a combination of kinetic and potential energy. What's wrong? What happened? Yukai hurried forward to pull the man up, asking, Are you okay, brother? Normally, Zhou Zichao should have been holding onto the sandbag. With something like this happening, Yukai was completely unable to react. As the saying goes, once the arrow is shot, there's no turning back. How can you retract a punch? I'm fine, Zhou Zichao said after standing up, his face grim. Someone asked, Isn't that serious? You've been learning for weeks and you still can't hold a sandbag steady. Jing Yu picked up the sandbag on the ground. It showed 205 kilograms. She praised, amazing. Even with a distributed force, it can still deliver 200 kilograms of impact force. Holding the sandbag, she said to Yukai, Come on, test it again. A taller man walked up to her, took the sandbag, and said, Let me do it. You're too light. Jing Yu weighed less than 50 kilograms and was a lightweight boxer, while Yukai was 1.8 meters tall and weighed 72 kilograms. They were not on the same weight class. My name is Qiao Hai, he introduced himself, then raised the sandbag in his hand and said, Come on. Give it your all. I'm ready. Chen's Honggayu came out and saw this scene. Curious, he asked, What's going on? Why are you all gathered together? Aren't you training? Jingyu said, It's okay, master. We didn't test it right just now. Let's test it again. Then what are you all doing together? Disperse. Chen's Honggayu said. Qiao Hai was taller than Ye Kai, his body brimming with muscle and solid. He was now holding a sandbag in a standard defensive stance. Here I come, Ye Kai prompted. He already had a rough idea of his own strength, so this time he controlled his speed and swung his fist once again, striking the bag. Bang! Qiao Hai held the sandbag, motionless. How much? Chen's Honggayu asked. Qiao Hai glanced at the display on the bag and said, 405. So high? Once he perfected his boxing skills, that number should increase even more. This was a rare heavy hitter in China. This was a promising prospect. With proper training, he would definitely be able to dominate the middleweight division and bring China another world championship without a problem. Okay, Chen's Honggayu said 3 times in a row, pulling Yukai aside and asking, Do you want to go pro? No. What? Chen's Honggayu's smile froze, and he anxiously asked again, What did you just say? Chen's Honggayu grabbed Yukai's hand and asked again, Didn't you learn boxing because you wanted to go pro? Faced with Chen's Honggayu's pressing questioning, Yukai didn't know what to say. He could see that the old man was anxious now, but asking him to go pro? What difference would that make from just working? With his increasing talent, Yukai would quickly rise to the top of any industry he chose. If he wanted to be an athlete, then no other country would have a chance to compete in the Olympics. If Yukai's talent were to increase even more, he would be able to dominate athletes worldwide. If he wanted to be a scientist, then with his talent, inspiration, and acquired reading skills, Yukai could definitely develop many interesting products. Perhaps doing these things would be lucrative, perhaps even famous, but none of these were what Yukai wanted. Right now, he just wanted to travel and see the world with his eyes. The Earth has 510 million square kilometers of land, home to over 1.5 million animal species, and features landscapes like grasslands, deserts, glaciers, and snow-capped mountains. How much of this had he seen? Yukai's original intention in learning boxing was self-defense. He couldn't put the cart before the horse. After careful consideration, Yukai said, "I learned boxing to improve my physical condition and protect myself when faced with danger." He bowed slightly to Chen Zhongyu and said, "I'm sorry, master, I've disappointed you." With that, Yukai began to put on his watch and bracelet. He admired Master Chen Zhongyu. He was a kind, honest man. Like Dao Jet, the fisherman he met on the island, and Phyllis, the WPSA base manager he met in Africa, their ideals in life were unaffected by external factors. Yukai, in turn, was striving to become one of them. Chen Zhongyu suddenly said, "Keep training. Even if you don't become a professional boxer, you should still train hard." "Master Chen, Chen Zhongyu interrupted, "Whether you want to become a professional or not is your business, but since you have such a talent, it would be a pity to waste it. You don't have to practice boxing to learn boxing here. Think of this as a gym." Chen Zhongyu said. The old man thought optimistically that if Yukai practiced for a while, he might like this sport. "Then I will teach you to hit the sandbag first. Before, you didn't call it hitting the sandbag, you called it the sandbag hitting you. Do you need boxing gloves?" Yukai asked. "No need. I'll teach you how to punch first." Chen Zhongyu led Yukai to the sandbag and demonstrated, each foot, one on each side, without overlapping. "Squat slightly, and act as if you're ready to attack at any moment. You must treat the sandbag like a person, not a punching bag." Chen Zhongyu placed his right hand against his cheek and gently swung his left, striking the upper and middle areas of the bag. These are the head and abdomen, both of which are important areas you want to attack. Try it yourself. Don't use too much force, and don't clench your fists. Yukai followed suit and quickly got into the rhythm. P.S. The previous chapter has been deleted and reposted after revision. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.